Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host. The y'all mean the revolution and black people are rejecting the Greek freaks. It's over for them. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know Court Figures Live. Support the platform. You in the House of Revolution. Kamala, the scamming is over. Beyonce, they rejecting you too. Let's get into this information, y'all.
This message is for Beyonce. Beyonce, we don't give a damn about you. We don't give a damn about how many speeches you read from a teleprompter, how many rituals you do, or what kind of voodoo you do. Texas will forever be a red state. It will forever be a red state. It will always be a red state. I don't give what you do. And for you to come out here and try to finesse the black vote for a politician who don't even have no plans for your community goes to show us how much you care about your own people. What you need to be worried about is P. Diddy. What you need to be worried about is Jeff Epstein. What you need to be worried about is Jaguar Wright. What you need to be worried about is Aaliyah. What you need to be worried about is God. And you need to repent and not worry about where our vote is going. We don't care about you, Beyonce. Bye, Beyonce. Because you got God's answer too, not us.
Look, more and more women are coming out rejecting this little trick they try to pull with Beyonce, and it's backfiring on Curry Queen Kamala. Now, let me tell you, she's definitely got plans for us. More plans to destroy the black community. More plans to push black women and black men away from each other instead of towards each other. More plans to terminate more black children like they haven't taken away enough already. More plans to keep black women strong, independent, and struggling instead of with a man so that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's what they have Beyonce, Kelly Rowland, and Kamala pushing for. They tell you to terminate your kids, black women, while Beyonce went and got 3. Kelly Rowland up there, she's stumping for terminations and single strong women while she's got 2 herself and a husband at home. They're up here promoting feminism and strong and independent while they all have husbands. Beyonce, she's got a billionaire husband. But none of these women, including Kelly Rowland, have a clue about normal life for everyday people. All of these women are so privileged, they could care less about an economy or inflation. They're doing just fine. But let me tell you who's not doing so well. Average Americans, the working class.
Hey, yo, people, they are struggling. They are struggling. And why do I say that? Because they had to bring out the big guns. Michelle Obama. Michelle, we are over you and your husband. Okay? First, Barack had to come out to tell the brothers that he wasn't feeling them, not feeling Kamala. And then Michelle had to come out and tell us that she's not feeling us, putting Kamala to a different stand than Trump. The Obama's people just want us to settle for a mediocre candidate because whoever the president is doesn't affect their world. It don't affect them. Yo, people, and the celebrities that they keep putting in your face, whoever the president is doesn't affect them neither or their children. Yo, let me share y'all a story real quick. Okay, real quick. And let me see in the comments if this story you think relates to Beyonce and Barack and all the other little celebrities that we keep seeing, okay? Yesterday, my husband went to the meat market with our 9-year-old daughter and her girlfriends. We live in Pennsylvania. We live in a county outside of Philadelphia. He went to the meat market in Southwest Philly. Those from Philly or live in Philly know what I'm talking about. Elmwood Avenue, okay? This neighborhood is very impoverished. Poverty, people are struggling, people are visibly broke. You can see it. But what you can also see is the Democrat signs and posters all around, okay? So my husband goes to the meat market. He gets the items. The cashier rings it up. The cashier says, sir, you might want to put some things back. And my husband's like, why? She said, once you see the total. He said, how much? She said, 140. He said, okay. She fake impressed. Probably wasn't fake. She probably was really impressed. She was like, usually people only come here with like $10 or $20 and just get enough things for the day or the next day. People, is that how Beyonce and Barack shop? Do they shop just per meal or per day? So the cashier went on to ask my husband, is you have a big family? And he said, no, it's just me, my wife, my 9-year-old daughter in the house. She's surprised. People, I've been an RN for 8 years, okay? I make decent money, okay? But I've, I'm stuttering, people, because I just understand how people can vote for this nonsense. When I go into the market and I spend $300 on just a cart full of groceries, that hurts my pockets. And I make decent money, okay? And I think about the people who got multiple children and lower income and how they are not managing. That is who I relate to. So all that Hollywood elite bull keep shoving in your face, they don't care about us. Their struggles aren't our struggles. So stop playing. Then they bringing the illegals in and putting the illegals in a better position than us. And y'all voting for that nonsense?
She gave a glimpse of what's happening in these neighborhoods. We're talking about folks going into the store with $10 to $20 a day, trying to scrape up enough food to feed their families, while Kamala and Biden, they let in all these illegals and they gave them food stamps. And we're talking about millions of people getting thousands of dollars in food stamps. Meanwhile, Black people in Philly, they're trying to hold it together. And shout out to our people in Philly. But it's not just them. It's the same story in New York. Why do you think all the New Yorkers, they've been moving down to North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas? Why do you think all the folks in California, they've been moving by the thousands consistently to Houston, Austin, Dallas, Vegas, Georgia? Why do you see so many people from Chicago moving to Texas and Georgia? Because they're living under these policies that's making it impossible for them to survive, but they're bringing in illegals and taking care of them. So then they move south to red states. And you have these folks like Nancy Pelosi, they're trying to flip these states that a lot of these people are migrating to basically match where they came from. And as for Black people, they keep telling us to vote against our own interests, which is crazy.
Listen, I see a lot of y'all Black people telling us to get out and vote. Who y'all assume we gonna be voting for because y'all telling us to get out and vote? We're not vote. All of us not voting for Kamala. So just because you're Black and you telling us to get out and vote, that don't mean we're gonna get out and vote for Kamala. We're not voting color. Kamala didn't come to neither one of us when she selected her marriage and who she chose to procreate with. She didn't come to neither one of us. And then I see a lot of y'all saying that Trump inherited Obama's policies. That's why we did good when Trump was in office. Okay, so now, allegedly, we're under Trump policy, so that's why inflation is high. Lies. And if we vote for Kamala, what y'all gonna say then? Oh, she's under Trump policy, so she can't do nothing, this, that, and the other. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear it. All of us are not voting for Kamala. So y'all can stop telling us to get out and vote because you're Black and you think we're gonna vote for Kamala. It ain't happening. And I see people saying get out and vote Black. Why? Why we gotta be voting color? We voting policies, baby. We not voting no more color. You get out and vote for who you vote for, and we get out to vote for who we vote for. And just let that be that.
Look, you see it for yourself. Black people are not buying this, oh, vote for this lady because she's Black. The identity politics, you're not going to be able to continue to run that same play over and over. For one, Kamala not even Black. And it's amazing how the mainstream media, they're ignoring that.
Now, there's even more proof, of course, that at the very least, the bare minimum, Kamala Harris is not Black. It isn't just Janet Jackson. Funny who the media picks on and who the media stays away from.
And it's very disrespectful for them to know this information now, because trust me, they all know it, and continue to come in our faces and lie and tell us that she's a Black woman and we should support her because of it. It's the reason why she's got the lowest support from Black people since 1960. Black men and Black women. And I'm going to be honest, if you would have told me last year that you'll even have Black women turning on the Democrats, that would have been hard to believe, but look at it now.
Y'all, I know it may be wrong to say, but I really do love Trump. I really do. Like, I'm serious. Like, I love him, and it's really strange because maybe I shouldn't. But after this, after this rally, y'all can barely see me, and I'm so sorry. But after this rally, I really, really feel like we see the different spirit that they have with Trump's campaign. Everything, they seem so genuine. It's almost like God has blessed their campaign. But when you look at Kamala's, when you look at Kamala's rally, it's very wicked. The spirit is totally different. The spirit is off. It is just very strange. And it's like when you're watching Trump, when you're looking at the Trump rally tonight, everything was so gentle. It was just very, I mean, he was very stern, but it was like God just put a blessing upon that thing. And I'm telling y'all right now, we can see that, we can feel it. See, even though Kamala comes out and she's like, oh, well, she has all these people to support her. Y'all need to fight for freedom and all of that other stuff. It doesn't seem genuine because they're lying. They're not being honest. They're not being authentic. And we can feel that. It's almost like if you look at the old cartoons and see how beautiful and comforting it is compared to the newer cartoons, if they remake it, there's something very distorted about it that feels uncomfortable, and it doesn't feel homey. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel authentic to your soul. And I noticed that with the rally tonight for Trump. It was beautiful. Even the music he walked out to, it was so classy. It was so powerful. Guys, y'all know how to vote, but I just had to come out and say, I love Trump. I don't know him. Everybody like, well, you ain't got to love the man, and I don't have to love him. But I'm just telling y'all, I love Trump. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he can't do no wrong. He's still a man, but I love Trump, and I love what they all stand for. You couldn't even debate anything that they said, because everything they said is something you should be for. You should be for everything that they're discussing, everything that they're saying that they want to do for this country.
And look, she's not the only one. I've been seeing a bunch of Black women saying the same thing. We're seeing the lowest support from Black women for a Democrat candidate in 64 years. Something is definitely happening, and it can't be ignored. There's a shift. And that started with the Black men being tired of being disrespected by the Democrats, and they started moving accordingly. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Let me know what you think about this below. Special thank you to
Hey there, besties. We have another one. So we have to shout out again Big Hawk from Yonkers. Link his name because he's coming out with these reaction videos with scenes from TikTok, basically. He doing a damn thing. We need to support our brother, okay? We're going to go ahead and react to this as well. Let's hear what she has to say. This black woman has some words for Barack, Spike, Jamal, and Magic Johnson, and we here for it.
Democrats pimp out the next Black celebrity from Spike Lee, Barack Obama, Jamal Bryant, and Magic Johnson to know just because the four of you are for sale does not mean that Black people are also for sale. First, we saw Magic Johnson. Then we saw Barack Obama. Now we got Spike Lee coming out. And now we got Pastor Jamal Bryant. And these people have the nerve. Pastor Jamal Bryant talked about, is something wrong with brothers who don't support a sister. It was a sister who raised you. It was a sister who taught you how to read. Man, you...
They're so ignorant that they don't even realize what they're saying when they say these things is that there's only women raising children, which I don't believe is true all the time, but they're going along with this single mother narrative. Now, when I say that we need to do something about it, don't nobody want to talk about it. They want to get mad because, you know, daggone well that y'all be out here looking crazy. And then when something that's normal happens, i.e. a woman, myself, is married and has children and raises them together, they don't know anything else, which is crazy since Magic Johnson is freaking married, been married to the same woman no matter how many times he cheated on her and brought home a package, still with that daggone woman, but gonna sit up here and say, oh, only Black women and men gotta be subservient to women. That ain't how it works. And if Jamal Bryant actually thinks this, which I think he does, he ain't no man of God. And yet you Black people be following his ass and other fake daggone preachers, and then wonder why we got problems in the community. You're seeing it on screen. You're seeing why. All these people out here wilding, you need to listen, you need to pay attention. They are telling on themselves. They want y'all to continue to be baby mamas, to be downtrodden, so that you can be saved by the same government that's paying their asses.
Stop and focus on what God called you to do which is correct the house of God. You need to focus on that instead of trying to tell black people what they ought to do, how they ought to do it, and when they ought to do it. You need to be quiet and get yourself back in line. Make sure you live according to God's word before you try to correct black people. And let me tell you something, Mr. Spike Lee, who has made your living because of black people.
I had to pause it on that because she ain't tell no lies. She probably the same age as I am, or around the same age where Spike Lee was out here with every black movie and show and TV show and with black people. He freaking, as far as I'm concerned, like kind of put Public Enemy out there in the forefront for other people to even know them. And then all the movies, he made movie after movie, including School Days and She's Gotta Have It and Malcolm X and all these things that are so blackity black. So for y'all to act like I'm not fucking in for black people is crazy fucking ridiculous. Just because you don't like these lessons because they're hard truths doesn't make me wrong. That makes you not want to face reality. And until black people do, they'll continue to be conned, because as far as I'm concerned, he's been full of shit if this is where he's at with regard to Cam, who ain't even black. This is the one that surprises me the most out of all these stupid ass people, but to know that he's fucking Boule D9, then I guess that makes sense. And these will be the same people who will tell you the Lord, the Lord, the Lord, but they put D9 over the daggone Lord and their common damn sense. How did Spike Lee make all his money? He made it off the all black people. He made it off of all black people. Blackity, black. Tell me something that white people did to help Spike Lee. Nobody. All these people that are doing this are people that have made their money, their millions off of y'all. And y'all will still support these people. Y'all will sit up here and listen to these daggone people. And it's fucking ridiculous and crazy to see this happen in your face. And y'all want to ignore it all on the strength of an alleged black woman. She is not black. I am black. You heard? And at this point, I don't even know if Spike Lee is, or the rest of these daggone people, while they sit here and they chastise the same people who have helped them, elevated them, and put them to where they are. And if you fall the fuck back into it, fuck you too.
And you turn it around and get pimped out by the Democratic Party and got the nerve to come on MSNBC talking about, I think my brothers are drinking the Kool-Aid. I think these people need to rethink the choices that they are making. Well, let me tell you something, because maybe you don't live in the real world like the rest of us. The average American makes around $50,000 a year, Mr. Spike Lee. Is that what you make? Why don't you try living on that? Why don't you try feeding your family on $50,000 a year? Why don't you try taking that just for 1 month, divide $50,000, subtract the taxes, and use that to feed your family. Use that to pay your rent or your mortgage. Use that to support family for 1 month, Mr. Spike Lee. For 1 month, I want to see you do it. And then try to come back and tell somebody else that they drinking the Kool-Aid. 4 of you need to shut up. And I'm saying that and I mean it. Shut up. If you are a black celebrity like Magic Johnson, Barack Obama, the fake Indonesian, Hawaiian, African man trying to get the brothers back in line, the 4 of you need to shut up, because you have no idea what you're talking about. You all have just been pimped out by the Democratic Party. That's why you're saying what you're saying. You just care about Kamala Harris getting elected. You don't care about anything else because nothing else affects you. The issues that affect everyday Americans don't really apply to you because you live in a different world. Shut up. Keep your opinions to yourself. And before anybody says, well, what about Elon Musk? What about the celebrity supporting Donald Trump? Let me tell you something. I want you to name me 4 celebrities supporting Donald Trump who have spoken specifically to black men or white men or any kind of demographic, because these 4 people in particular have been pimped out by the Democratic Party to speak specifically to black male voters, specifically, all 4 of them. And if you don't believe it, look up what Magic Johnson said. Look up Barack Obama. Look up Spike Lee. And look up Pastor Jamal Bryant. The 4 of them are targeting specifically black male voters, and they have absolutely no idea.
They know exactly what it is. They've heard them all. They don't care. They just think that Cam is the one. And I'm saying it again. It's going to be, they want it to be a moment. They want it to be symbolic. That's why Beyonce came out there to who rule the world. And it's going to be all this women's. The agenda is clear. I don't understand how anyone can't see it. I understand maybe women who maybe want to go along with it because they are in that type of on that type of time any daggone way. I ain't on that type of time. I ain't never been on that type of time. I don't need no ninja to tell me what to do, and I don't need no biatch to tell me what to do. And if you all needed these people to tell you what to do, then maybe you need to go and seek some daggone help. Because when Michelle Obama, who I'm going to get to that video of her too, comes out here and says women have it so hard, women, y'all shut the fuck up. Y'all are full of shit. Your life ain't that hard. And if it is that hard, that's because of you, not because you're a woman. Because you think you running something and you cannot run your own damn life. If you are a grown adult and you don't know to go to the damn doctor, you're a fucking idiot. And you need to be seen and taken in immediately. But let me go before I make this daggone video demonetized. Shout out to this woman. Shout out to Big Hawk. And we standing firm on this shit. Ain't no supporting in there, none of them. But I don't support none of them no more any daggone way because they ain't in my life. But Spike Lee can put out whatever the hell it is that he wants. I'll never support that nigga again. Y'all know what to do. I see you all in the next one.
Because Trump bad. Trump bad.
They know better than to feed me anything because I do not care.
What is going on, everyone? It is Taylor Nicole tuning in with another video with you guys once again. And the black church, I say that with quotations because I hate the whole white church, black church thing, but y'all know what I mean. The black church is mad at Jamal Bryant, and they are mad at him because he had Kamala come and speak at his church. You know, many black people don't support Kamala. Many black people, especially black Christians, think that she's fake and she's phony and that she's just leveraging this whole trying to leverage this whole black thing to gain the black vote, that she doesn't mean well, that she's wicked, that she's even a witch. That's what some people are saying. And so there are many black people who do not support her and think she is just pure evil. And so, understandably, they are upset that Jamal, who's supposed to be a pastor, godly man, well, we'll get into more of that later. Why is he inviting Kamala to his church to speak in front of his congregation? Okay. Now, what really makes this controversial, right, is that not too long ago, maybe a week or so ago, or not too long before she visited Jamal Bryant's church, she had a little thing that happened at one of her rallies where somebody in the crowd said that Jesus was Lord. And she said, "Hey, buddy, you're at the wrong rally. We don't do that Jesus thing around here. All right. We do not do Jesus stuff, all that. Yeah, you need to go to the other rally, buddy. We don't do that here. We don't do all that Jesus stuff here. Okay. You don't believe me? It's okay. I figured that you probably would not believe me. So that's why I decided to make sure I have the clip. And so we're going to look at this clip and if you haven't seen it already, which I'm sure many of you have, and kind of see her reaction to somebody saying that Jesus is Lord at her rally.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Kamala is such a freaking dweeb. You guys are at the wrong rally. Oh, I can't stand.
No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
She's so lame and cringe. Just everything. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. think you guys meant to go to the one down the street. Like, shut up. Like, why are you even talking? Well, why are you even talking? Who told you to speak? Anyways. Anyways. So obviously she's not a fan of Jesus. Think that's safe to say. And so, you know, she's not a fan of Jesus, then why is she going to talk at a church? Well, she literally just shut down somebody who said that Jesus is Lord. Is that not what church is about? Are we not going there to worship Jesus? Apparently we're not. Apparently we're not going to church to worship Jesus anymore. We're going to church to worship the pastor. We're going to church to worship everything except for Jesus. And so she actually, you know, went to Jamal Bryant's church. And you know what's funny about this is what I don't understand why people are so outraged. I don't understand why people are so outraged about this. This is the same guy who suggested that we grow weed in the church in order to attract black men. He wanted to grow weed to bring black men to the church. There should be not one black man going to his church. He basically called y'all a bunch of weed heads. Okay, that's what he basically said about black men. He said y'all a bunch of weed heads, so much so that, you know what? I'm just gonna let's grow weed so we can just bring them into the church. You know, let's you know, no. Like that's a big no for me. That's a big no for me. But I mean, he's been shown that he's a wolf, right? Like this isn't new. He didn't just one day wake up and decide to flip the script. I mean, he's, you know, he's not, I don't believe he's walking with the Lord. I have no evidence of him walking with the Lord. I don't see that. In the things that he has said, I just don't, that it doesn't give walking with the Lord. It just doesn't. And so this is actually an old clip of him suggesting that they grow weed at the church to attract black men. Now, this was about a year ago that he said this. And so check this clip out of him talking about this.
Some of the issues.
I'm looking for people that smell like weed. Is why aren't we not raising cannabis? I'll be able to bring in black males. They're able to do it legally. I'm teaching them farming.
Oh my God.
I'm helping them to enhance the ecosystem. Black boy in Bankhead said, they growing weed at the church? Where do I join?
Yes.
I don't need no pamphlet for him.
And there you.
And the black woman, I don't know who she is, but she just, oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, you know, that sounds like such a good idea, Satan. We should grow weed at the church, and we should bring the demons right in here. That's a good idea. Sign me up. That's basically, she's agreeing with him. But this is who I don't want to say y'all, because I know the people that watch this channel probably don't even like this guy, but this is who people are following. Let my pastor get on a podcast or somebody's show and say, yeah, you know, I was thinking, you know, we should just grow weed, you know, attract. I will not be attending his church anymore. You can bet your bottom dollar I won't. So a lot of the black church, they're outraged and they're mad at Jamal Bryant, but at the same time, a lot of the black church has enabled him, and pastors that are like him, who get up and they say inappropriate things, they do inappropriate things, but, you know, we just sweep it under the rug and, oh, it's just a mistake. He didn't really, you know, how many times does somebody have to do something that is absolutely outrageous before you believe that this is who they really are? I mean, how many times do pastors like him have to keep doing these things that they're doing and saying these things that they're saying, and all of this stuff coming to light before we say, okay, something is not right in the Kool-Aid. Something ain't right in water. Okay. This guy is not qualified to be trying to shepherd anybody outside of himself at right now. Like how many times do these pastors have to get up here and say and do these outrageous things before we believe that this is just who they are. And guess what? That was a year ago. Guess what? A year later, his church is still full of people who are still tithing, who are still supporting his mess because he does a little bit of good in the community. And see, we get blinded by stuff like that. Oh, but he's doing this, he's donated this, and he's building these homes, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Because people can do those things and it cannot be done unto the Lord. Are we justified by our works or our faith? Where is this man's heart? And from what I can tell, it ain't with God. I'm not saying he ain't Christian. I don't know whether he's saved or not. But I'm just saying he ain't walking with the Lord, and the Spirit of God is not in that church. Whatever he's doing, I don't believe the Spirit of God is with him or his church. And it's sad because there's a lot of people that goes to his church. Oh, well. You got to do your due diligence. You got to seek truth. You can't be afraid when truth says that you're wrong. That's why truth is here. And so he does that, right? And I think that one of the reasons why, pastors like him and other pastors like him, why they get away with murder almost and doing all the outrageous things that they do and saying all the outrageous things that they say, because I think many people, and I'm not going to even just say the Black church, right? I'm just many people who are in the church period. They care more about charisma and gifts more than anointing and obedience. They want to, somebody's a good speaker and somebody has charisma and somebody knows how to raise the roof and make them scream and shout and touch the Holy Spirit and whatever else they do at New Missionary. What is his church name? New Missionary, little rock on the side of the road Baptist church. We got Kamala in the house today, y'all. I need you to get your wallets out. Get your bank cards out. Get your Apple Pay out today. Because you know how those Baptist churches get down, right? And so, people follow these preachers through all of their mess because they know how to give a good word. They're not giving you the word, but they're giving you a good word. You got a good word. Oh, did you hear Pastor Jamal Bryant? He tore it up today. I almost threw my shoe at him. He was preaching so good today. Some of the best preaching I've ever heard was from preachers who, they didn't make me scream or shout, none of that, but they were able to teach me how to apply God's word in practical ways, how to make God's word make sense to me, and how to make it come alive in my day-to-day life, how to change my mind to have the mind of Christ. And so what I've realized is that, many people go to these churches, while people get mad at these pastors, but they also enable them because they continue to go to their churches because the pastor has charisma or the pastor is a good speaker and he has good gifts, but he's not anointed and he's not living a life of obedience. And I actually want to pull up the clip here of this speech that Kamala gave, some of the speech that she gave. There was something about it that I wanted to talk about. I'm not really sure what that was until she started speaking. I forgot that fast. But I wanted to pull this clip up, as she's speaking. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But I want to pull this clip up, and there's something I need to say about this, and we'll speak right after I play this clip.
Loving hands. and where I first learned the teachings of the Bible, and my earliest memories of those teachings are about a loving God. A loving God. A God who asks us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves.
You mean like the babies that you want to murder? You mean like those? That those people? And then, you know, this is something too about this whole that this is going on to a whole nother conversation. I won't get too far into this, but you know, there's this whole other Christianity that only knows God as a loving God. Oh, wow, he's a loving God. When you know God, you got to know him in his totality, right? Or at least as much as you possibly can as a human. And so they know, oh, he's a loving God. He's a loving God. He's a loving God. And they use this to push their woke culture mess and their victimhood and their disobedience. No matter what I do, he's a loving God. He's going to forgive me. Right. Anyways, I think that's what I wanted to say about this. But there is also a clip here, and I'm going to see if I can go back to it, where Jamal is actually speaking, and I'm trying to see if I can remember where I left off at on that. Let me see something really quick.
Jesus, and all he's done for me, my soul cries out. Somebody ought to cry out.
I don't know. I don't think that's it. You know how those Baptist churches get down. They always doing the most. Let's see. I don't think I can find it. But there was something else that he said or that he did. And I don't know. It was just bad theological teaching in my eyes. Anyways, I don't think I can find that clip. But, you know, the point being is that while people are outraged at him, I mean, this man is being clear as day that he does not walk with God.
Their MSNBC went to a barbershop to still talk about Barack Obama when he disrespected black men. And he's still out here trying to wag his finger, but that's not really working. I want you to hear how these brothers feel about what Obama was really trying to do.
Made remarks on the campaign trail. He was at a stop, I think at Pittsburgh, right? And he said, I think there's some brothers out there who are on the fence and they're saying it's because of this or that. But I think I'm paraphrasing here. But it's because they have a problem electing a woman as president. And I just wonder for anybody who heard that, like what they thought of that.
Deeply offended. I was deeply offended. And it felt like a moment where it's like, you N-words better get in line and do what we say. And it felt like him as the czar of the Democratic Party coming down to say, go get these N-words in line. And the general tone of it was disgusting. It was abhorrent. I don't respect it. I didn't like nothing about it. And Kamala, 2 days after that, is like, we love our black men. We have programs and things that we're rolling out for them, and she rolled out policy.
Good cop, bad cop. Yeah. You know, because
I'm tired of the good cop, bad cop. I'm tired of it.
Well, we definitely, agree with our brother. That's exactly what they was trying to do, is trying to tell black men, you better get in line. Like Tiffany Cross, when she told black men, you need to get in line and follow the women. It's the same old, same old. But let me tell Obama something. Let me tell the Democrat Party something. You Democrat shields, you can go back and tell them we said this. It's no such thing as getting in line. It's no such thing as getting back on the Democrat plantation. We are thinking for ourselves. We are going to do for self, and we're going to build for self. And I know good and well that you don't like that. You don't like that kind of terminology. You don't like that process, because as we look more and more into your policies, that party is not for black men, because that party believes in just a bunch of social programs. It doesn't believe in upward mobility, and black men want upward mobility. Black men want to have the same opportunities as any other man in this country. See, black men know that the Democrat Party has betrayed them time and time and time again. Look at this migrant crisis, ladies and gentlemen. This migrant crisis, Kamala and Biden is making sure to put resources into the hands of other men who are not even American citizens. They're giving them jobs. They're giving them apartments, hotels. They're paying for furniture. They're doing this for all these other men, but for the black man in America, they won't do a single solitary thing. The black man that's on the streets in the same cities where they're giving these migrant men money and resources in the same city. So a lot of black men have seen this. A lot of black men have woke up to this, and there's nothing Obama could come out and say about it, because Obama doesn't live a life like the rest of us in the black community. And so as we are on this last, full week, right, with this election, election day is coming. Like I said, I already voted, so I'm not getting out there with that. So I could sit on the couch election day because I already voted. See, I got that over with. I told you I was going to do mine the very first day. I voted last week. And in Texas, this was the only weekend that you could have early voted, because it's getting cut off November the 1st. And that's why I kept preaching to y'all, go to early voting, do it early, do it early, do it early. Don't be caught in that crowd, because if anybody do something crazy or some shenanigans go on, I don't want my people in the middle of it. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want y'all in the middle of it. I wanted y'all to go early vote, get it over with, knock it out. And then that's that. And then we just sit back and see what's going to happen. But see, this election is different for the Democrat Party. See, the Democrats are used to black men just getting, like he said, in line. And the way black men are moving now, I promise you, we have greater days ahead as the black community. We really do. Because now we are, getting off of this Democrat plantation. Now more black men want to focus on having businesses and doing things for themselves. Black men want to make sure black women are good, black children are good. You're going to see a turnaround in the black community. You're going to see it. And anything that we leave, it starts to wither on the vine. Look at the black church. Black men walked away from the black church, and now look, it has no cultural relevance. Jamal Bryant admitted that, right? When we talked about this last night in the podcast. You look at a situation like the Democrats, black men walk away in mass, that won't have no relevance either. I promise you that. It will wither on the vine as well. Because see, one thing the other groups don't have, as I talked about on, African Diaspora News Channel, they don't have the voice of a roaring lion. Only the black man and woman have that voice. And as long as you got black people, and the Democrats had black people, that's why they got to where they're at, because of black people. But if they're so much better than us and everything, okay, cool. You want to prioritize men of other communities? You want to prioritize migrants? Okay, no problem. Well, then go ahead on and deal with them. Leave us alone. You're not doing nothing for us, no way. So we'll figure it out, like we always have figured it out in the United States of America. See, one thing they're not used to is black men respecting themselves. Because, see, black men are supposed to be the men that you can disrespect, and they're not going to say anything about it. Remember, we talked about this on the live stream, where the default setting for black men is supposed to be at the bottom, supposed to be taking disrespect, supposed to take on the trash of everybody. But black men now are saying, no, I know my worth. I'm not taking the trash of anybody. I want my piece of the pie like anybody else is going to get. I'm not going to vote for somebody that's going to give my piece of the pie away to men who just got over here yesterday because they chose to come up here and they're entitled. No, I'm not going to use my vote and reward them with any kind of political power. And look, they tried everything they can. Oh, Trump's racist. Trump's a fascist. Trump's he wants to judge generals like Hitler and all this stuff that they say about Trump. Right? This is all what they said about him. As of in recent reports, black people like, You know why black people like that about it? Because it lost its sting. Y'all said it so much. And if he was going to do anything like that, like a fascist, wouldn't he did it the 4 years he was in office? The way y'all talking, Trump was going to put it. You remember they were saying Trump going to put y'all back in slavery. Last time I checked, we didn't see a plantation during Trump's presidency. Last time I checked. Because you got some people that say that he going to put y'all back in. Man, the Democrats will put us in slavery quicker than Trump will. Because look all the black people the Democrats have put in jail. Look all the black people Kamala Harris have put in jail. Look all the black people Joe Biden have helped put in jail. They put more people in jail on that's a true plantation to jail. Because that same 13th Amendment that say you're not a slave no more, that same 13th Amendment say except for crime and punishment. Except. So you can be a slave that way. And that's why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been horrible to the black community. They've both been behind legislation and prosecution of black men and black women. Kamala Harris set up here and locked up a bunch of black mothers. Well, she's supposed to be a sister girl ski-weeing it up, right? That's why even black women come out and say, ain't no black woman. That's not a black woman. Because a black woman doesn't want to lock up a bunch of black women on some stupidity like truancy. So Joe Biden and Kamala, they were perfect for each other because they both had anti-black racism in them. Now, I'm a firm believer. I want to see what this election is going to be. And I know because they're already preparing it. If they lose, it's black men's fault. But I'll be waiting for them exit polls because I already know white men and white women are not going to vote for Kamala. Hispanic men is not going to vote for her like that. Asian men, they're not going to really, they may be split with them, but definitely the white men and Hispanic men, they're not fooling with Kamala. You got Muslim men that say they're not fooling with Kamala. It's a lot of men that's not fooling with her in this country, ladies and gentlemen. And some women of other communities aren't fooling with her either. So they already trying to craft a message of blaming black men, and we not going to let that happen because we're going to use facts. We're going to post the exit polls. We're going to talk about them, break them down and everything. But we will not let you lay the feet of the feet of this woman at the feet of black men. Black men is only one part of that story. Because trust me, there are Democrat insiders right now that fear she's going to lose. They're saying it. They're now saying it. We fear she's going to lose this election. You think? The more and more she talk, the more and more she make people don't like her. Then that recent bait and switch with Beyonce. You have Beyonce come out. People think, oh my God, we're going to get at least a song from Beyonce. And Beyonce did her little thing like Usher did and left. And people was hot. They was hot. They bait and switch. They bait and switch people. And one thing people do not like is to be deceived. If this woman, knowing how people feel about Beyonce, right? They don't go to Beyonce to hear her talk about politics. They go to Beyonce to hear her sing. And let me tell you something. If this woman and the Democrats, well, that's basically a lie to you because they lied to you. They made you think that she was coming there to sing. They didn't say, hey, she's not singing. She's going to do a speech. No, they didn't do that because they wanted you to fill the room. So you really trust this woman to be a president? I don't. Like I said, I didn't vote for her. But do you really trust this woman to be president? Really? No. Then these people that support her, if you ask them what policies is she's going to put in that you support, they look like a deer in headlights most of the time. You say, give me about 5 policies that she's going to put up that you just really support. And like, oh, well, I wanted to vote for her because, you know, she's would be the first woman, black woman, abortion, you know, that it's not really much they can say. And that's not good. That's not good at all. Because she ain't really said much or nothing what she gonna do either. So how could they really repeat it, right? But shout out to the brothers. I'm proud of black men. I'm proud of you because you're standing up. You're not allowing the disrespect. You're not allowing it. And that's such a beautiful thing. Obama don't have respect from black men because he didn't do right by black men when he was in office. He talked down to black men. Because you know why he talked down to black men? Because he don't relate to black men. He don't. He wasn't raised like we were raised with black people. He was raised with them folks. He relate more to them, but he don't relate to us at all. And that's always been his issue and problem. That's why, he others us. Just like that's why we had to delineate. Because see, delineation, we understand the mindset of Obama and Kamala with delineation. They don't come from our group, but they want to put them as representation of our group.
The military against opponents he calls enemies from within, who has threatened to use the troops to quell what he says are lawless cities and to use those troops to carry out mass deportations of immigrants, is once again turning Madison Square Garden into a staging ground for extremism. Joining me now, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, history professor at New York University and author of Strong Men, Mussolini to the Present, and Anne Applebaum, Pulitzer Prize-winning historian, staff writer at The Atlantic, and author of Autocracy, Inc., The Dictators Who Want to Run the World.
All presidents are dictators.
I cannot wait to have this conversation with both of you. And Ruth, thank you both very much for being here. Ruth, since you are not at the table, let me start with you and just talk to us about the parallels that we're seeing between 1939, that rally at Madison Square Garden, and the rally we're seeing right now at Madison Square Garden, and the rhetoric.
Hey, welcome back. It's your man, Wise. So MSNBC just crossed the line comparing Trump's Madison Square Garden rally to a Nazi rally from 1939, even putting it side by side with Hitler. I mean, these people are out of their mind, but that just goes to show how desperate they actually are. I mean, this is not only outrageous, but it's flat out disrespectful, especially with Holocaust survivors and proud Jewish Americans standing there in support. This rally, it was packed with everyday Americans from all backgrounds, all walks of life, united with a shared belief of, not hate, but to label these people as Nazis just because of their political choice, that's just flat out wrong. MAGA is bringing people together across all walks of life. Tired of the media's labels and desperate narratives, though. People are sick and tired of it. And this MAGA movement is actually becoming an extremely diverse movement.
Brooklyn, you said, this is pretty deep blue, right, in the city. That's probably why he hasn't had too many major rallies in New York City. He's been around when he's been here for court cases and the criminal trial. What do you think the crowd's going to be like today inside?
Everybody's excited. And I think it was really ridiculous that this is supposed to be a free country. And from the first time he was running, you didn't feel free to say that I support Trump. And especially as a black person, he's a racist. I said, well, I don't see any evidence of that.
Thank you for talking to me. Appreciate it. Have fun at the rally.
Oh, she nailed it. Trump isn't the villain the media tries to make him out to be. He listens and cares about what people from all walks of life have to say. The bigger media narrative, though, is that they just can't handle the truth. They just can't. They box Trump supporters in with every label they can think of, but more and more people, especially Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, are seeing through it. At this past New York rally, I was so surprised by how many, Black men were there, realizing that Trump's policies have impacted jobs, criminal justice reform, and standing up to the establishment. It's about people making their own choices, and there's a shift happening. Black men are unapologetically supporting President Donald Trump, calling out the real differences in the leadership. Check this guy out. He's telling it exactly like it is.
Put on for everybody, a white man, an upper man, or somebody that's out color.
Trump free Kodak. Why is Kodak out making music?
What was he arrested for? Does
Come
that
on.
matter?
Let's talk about
Is
it.
that important to me?
Who's she freed?
I said no important.
All right. Who's she locked up?
A lot of folks.
We're out here today in New York City outside MSG ahead of this Trump rally. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you came out?
Support Trump, man. That's what I came to do.
Is there anything he says or does that really excites you as a voter?
Yeah, get the migrants up out of here.
Yeah. I know you guys are dealing with the migration crisis, specifically here in New York City. Can you speak a little bit to that issue and how you think Trump's going to solve it?
I can't. You know why I can't? We need to have a deportation party. Yeah, we need that deportation party.
Yo, bro, my family's an immigrant.
Yeah, my family's immigrants too. I'm half Colombian and black.
You know what it is?
If that's the case, I might as well walk my family across the border.
Yo, bro.
See?
We
just walk them across the border.
We come to see Trump. Absolutely. I want to ask because I know that's been the core part of the Trump issue. Can you speak a little bit more?
Your family being immigrants means absolutely nothing. And to be honest with you, none of us are against immigrants. We're against the illegal immigrants who come over here and they're not adding to society. They're coming over here and they are liabilities on the system right now. Let's just keep it a buck.
How that excites you as a voter. Why is this a top issue for you?
Oh, because you can't walk around New York City safely. You can't, bro. I got 2 kids, bro. They growing up in New York City, bro. Come on. You don't know where they come from, bro. They're not even vetted.
He's absolutely right. And people are frustrated behind it. I mean, this dude right here, I mean, he's hitting the truth about what's actually going on, or telling the truth about what's going on in New York. And he's telling the truth that New Yorkers are facing right now. This isn't just about immigration. It's about priorities. People are crossing the border without proper vetting, being put up in hotels, given free phones, free housing, often in neighborhoods already struggling with crime and limited resources. Meanwhile, longtime local residents feel overlooked, and a lot of them are afraid. The crime, come on, man. I mean, the crime is a real issue, especially with some who cross the border having criminal records. They know this. There's been certain amount of people, that have committed some heinous crimes. There's a percentage. Trump's stance, people love his stance. His stance is to secure the border and put Americans first. Yet the media labels that as racist. But let's take a look at how people actually feel about that one particular topic.
What's your reaction to people who call Trump a racist because he talks about wanting a strong border and stuff like that?
Not somebody that was at the NAACP. He did mad shit with black people. Come on, bro. He not racist. Niggas don't like him. They're gonna be like that. That's regular.
Trump's been working hard at outreach to the black community. Among people, he gets something like 20% support from. What does he need to do or say to earn more support from the black community?
Nah, he got full support. 100%. People just scared to show it. But trust me, when they voting, that boy gonna win.
Do you get any pushback in your community for wearing the MAGA hat like that?
No, hell no. What?
Nobody gives you funny looks or anything?
Go sell it in the hood right now. I bet you everybody cop up.
I know Kamala Harris is his opponent. What do you think about Kamala Harris? If elected,
come to the hood.
She'd be the first.
She can't come to the hood, man. Think about it. I'm in the South Bronx. She can't come to the South Bronx. Trump had a rally in the South Bronx at Crotona.
And he was at a barbershop in the Bronx.
He shut the Bronx down. He's shutting Queens. Come on, bro. They not having no rallies and doing what he does.
Why you think they only?
Bro, point the camera over there, bro.
If she was elected, she'd be the first black female president. Is that important to you?
Her standing next to Vladimir Putin and motherfucking King.
I'm so tired of hearing that first black female. None of that stuff even matters, to be honest with you. It shouldn't matter either.
Them niggas ain't hearing what she gotta say, nigga. They going what? Nigga, world leaders. They gonna eat that bitch alive.
Yo, the language didn't necessarily care for, but he's expressing himself, and I'm okay with that. I'm not a big fan of people using the N-word, black, white, or other. I don't care. Not my favorite word out there. I mean, I think there's better ways that we can express ourselves. But hey, you can't disagree with what he's saying, though. You just can't. I mean, Trump did a lot for the black community, and it's not just talk. He even held a rally out in the South Bronx, one of the toughest areas in the country and one of the toughest areas to connect with, people, directly. But meanwhile, Kamala Harris, where is she? And what has she actually done for the black community in any capacity that she's, sat in? She was a senator for a minute, but when she was DA and attorney general, a lot of the things that she implemented did not help. Kept brothers locked up. Jamal Truelove got a big bag off of the heinous acts of a Kamala Harris hiding and suppressing evidence that put that man and gave that man 50 years. He's out now and received $13 million behind it. So don't sit here and tell me that, oh, Kamala Harris is for the Black community when she's actually put a lot of brothers in jail. You know, she locked up the sister out there whose daughter, you know, suffered from sickle cell anemia and had that lady arrested. I mean, this is ridiculous, man. Trump's support in the Black community, you know, it may be quiet, but it is real. There's a lot of brothers and sisters out here that are low-key supporting President Donald Trump. And, you know, some of it is fear, kind of like the sister, you know, mentioned earlier, you know, some people that still have a fear, you know, of letting it be known who they support. And you know what? Who you support, that's your business anyway. You know, but they see the impact of Trump's policies. You know, that First Step Act, you know, which released thousands of nonviolent offenders, a lot of them Black men. You know, the mainstream media, I mean, they label, you know, and they pressure, but many supporters, they do stay silent because mainstream media, they may try to put a target on your head. People fear maybe losing their jobs or something along those lines because they decided that, hey, we're going to put America first and we want to support a candidate that wants to put America first. And let's be real. People care about results, not just checking boxes. Trump isn't afraid to show up where he's needed and fight for the people. That's why more Black men and folks from all backgrounds are rallying behind him at this point, and even CNN can't ignore it. Check this clip out.
There's a trend line now I never noticed before and make me go, whoa. This is one of them, all right? This is the Democratic margin among Black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points. That is about half the margin that Obama won them by back in November of 2012. And this, I think, is, you know, when Barack Obama goes in last week when he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, essentially talking to young Black men, he made it seem like it was a Kamala Harris specific problem. This is part of a long-standing trend of young Black men moving away from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris is just the latest to face that magnitude of younger Black men going towards the Republicans.
That was most interesting here is the trend line and where some of the biggest drops happen or already happened in this case. How about Black men overall?
How about Black men overall? It's part of the same picture. You know, we're looking once again at younger Black men. It looks like the worst Democratic performance since 1960, since JFK versus Richard Nixon. It's the same thing among Black men overall. Again, part of a similar trend, but here actually the drop off isn't as dramatic, right? Barack Obama won him by 85. Then you see 71 with Clinton, 69. Biden, basically the same thing, holding steady. But here again, very, very weak, only a 54-point margin. Now, again, still winning them by a large margin, but considerably lower than what we're used to, certainly considerably lower what we had during the Obama years. The bottom line is Kamala Harris with younger Black men and then Black men overall putting in historically weak performance for a Democratic
candidate. Is she getting any relief with Black women?
All right. So, you know, we're talking about the trend line, right? And Black women, look, she's doing better with Black women than she is doing among Black men. But here, there isn't a trend line almost until we get to Kamala Harris. So again, this is a Black margin among Black women. Look, Obama won him by 93, very large margin. Clinton won him by 93, a very large margin. Biden did a little bit worse at 85. But then you look here and you get a 71-point margin. Now, again, these are large margins, but the bottom line is when you're talking about the base of the Democratic Party, you would think that Kamala Harris would do very well among Black women based upon history. And of course, she would be the first Black woman president, but she's actually doing the worst for a Democratic candidate among Black women since 1960, if this holds, John.
And again, when you look at the numbers here, whenever you come in, looking at the trends, it's probably the most important thing.
You got it, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look at that. Trump going to mess around and get close to 30% of the Black vote. And if that happens, it should be a landslide win for him. He's gaining voters or gaining Black voters in a way that we haven't seen in decades.
Because that ain't how we feel about it.
You know, even mainstream sources are acknowledging that he's pulling higher support among Black voters than any other Republican since the 60s. But this is the fault of the Democrats. Kamala Harris is a weak candidate for sure. But they've also been running the same playbook for 60 years now? And people are fed up. And then y'all put in this faux Black woman who's been Indian all her life until about 5 or 6 years ago. And all of a sudden she's Black listening to Tupac in her dorm room when Pac was in middle school, living in Baltimore. I mean, come on, man. Like, there's nothing real about this lady, and people are seeing through it. Now, you still have a large number of people who are falling for it, but a lot of people are saying, nah, she ain't it. And the Democrats ain't it. And honestly, I mean, the polls might even be underreporting this situation. That very much could be the case. I'm seeing brothers wearing MAGA hats openly now. More and more people that I run across are willing to tell you, hey, I'm supporting Trump this time around. And it has nothing to do with the stimulus check. It was about the fact that people had money in their pockets during the Trump administration pre-COVID. People remember, and people are struggling right now. Kamala, yes, she still has majority of the black voter support. She definitely still has that. But it's nothing like what it used to be. It's nowhere near as strong. And in fact, she's got less support from black women than any other candidate or any other Democratic candidate dating back to the 60s, which is a huge red flag for them. And they are starting to panic because they know what's at stake.
Polling. Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with black voters since Richard Nixon back in 1960, not 68, since 1960. That's 64 years ago. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for Republicans since 2004 and George W. Bush.
Since Richard Nixon. And a lot of folks didn't like old Tricky Dick, and they are shook. And no wonder they're doubling down on the race card. No wonder they're really going in about Trump being, Hitler and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, no wonder. Think about that, man. They called a rally filled with love, unity, and genuine energy a Nazi rally. I mean, come on, man. Does this look like a daggone Nazi rally to you? I mean, check this out, man. Does that look like a Nazi rally to you? Like, come on, man. You got a sister here dancing with the American flag, and they're calling this a Nazi rally. This is the face. That's the face of the new Nazi party. A sister with the stars and bars dancing around. Like, come on, man. These people are outrageous. That lets you know that they're grasping for straws. And this is what they're afraid of. They see the movement growing, the energy, the joy, the people coming together for something bigger than themselves. Even in places they thought they had locked down, and it's got them in panic mode. Think about this, man. The MAGA movement is now the diverse movement, an extremely diverse movement. And it's filled with love, not only for Americans, but for this country. You can see it. It's real people standing up, having a good time, and fighting for what they believe in. The establishment is trying everything that they can to tear it down, but it's not working. People are seeing through the noise and are ready for change. But I want to hear from you guys. Are you seeing this shift in your community? If you hadn't gone out to vote already, please make sure that you do so.
Not a Kamala person. I know you. I've watched you. I know him better than his. You know what? Without speaking to you, I think I know you maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched you for so many years. You're not a Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. Nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
they know who
he
Khabib
was.
is.
He was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal. And there's the rhetoric is also that you're Hitler. And that
that's
in order to stop Hitler, you have to do whatever it takes.
That was okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, you're hearing this now. Kamala compared you to, said your love of Hitler yesterday.
Kamala's a very low IQ person. She's a very low IQ. I'm for taking tests too. I think anybody that runs for president they should give them tests. And it's not an age thing. It's not based. If you look back on history, 70s and 80s, some of your greatest leaders in the world history, long time world history, they were in their 70s and their 80s. But I think you should take cognitive tests.
A few moments later.
Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan, and he called you, Madam Vice President, a very low IQ person. and said, I think she needs to take a cognitive test. I think Kamala should have a test because there's something missing. There's something wrong with her. Would you take a cognitive test?
Sure.
When we have guests come on, Madam VP, we like to toast. And what I read on this card, you don't deserve this. You earned this. Being the first in so many areas. And you make us proud. I just want you to know you make us proud for what you've been able to accomplish. And we're 12 days away, and we hope you have an even greater accomplishment. So here's to continued success in everything you've done and everything that you will do.
Oh, bless you. And thank you. And to you, Shannon, to you for all the success and the voice you give to so many issues. Thank you for that.
Thank you very
And
much.
cheers to you.
Cheers.
And
What was
I'm
that?
not going to actually drink this because I might fall asleep. And I need to do this
I don't want you to
with
fall
Barack
asleep.
Obama this afternoon.
We don't want you to fall
So
asleep.
here we are. Cheers to everybody.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about the highly anticipated, not highly anticipated at all, interview between Shannon Sharpe and Kamala Harris. Now, this interview comes as Kamala Harris ducked and dodged Joe Rogan. Okay, Joe Rogan gave her an opportunity to come on his platform, and for whatever reason, Kamala Harris did not want to go on Joe Rogan's platform, although Joe Rogan has the largest platform in the world. I'm not sure why she wouldn't want to do it when she's running to be president of the United States, but apparently her schedule was too busy.
Can I ask you about Rogan? Was there a Rogan invite to the vice president that was turned down? Is it something you would consider doing, given the size of that audience, and given that a lot of the folks that Trump seems to be targeting might be listening to that?
Well, yeah, I think that the vice president's happy to go anywhere and any place to talk to a broad segment of the country. We talked with Rogan and his team about the podcast. Unfortunately, it isn't going to work out right now because of the scheduling of this period of the campaign.
Yeah, so apparently it's not just Kamala that needs to get a cognitive test, but also members of her team, right? Because apparently she missed out on the opportunity to get 30 plus million views in about 48 to 72 hours from doing the largest podcast in the world, okay, because of scheduling issues, okay? Now, Trump did the interview. He did the podcast for 3 hours, and if you guys haven't watched that podcast, I highly recommend it. It is one of the best podcasts I've seen from Trump, one of the best conversations I've seen from Trump. It is Trump in his element, and apparently it was so good that even Cenk Uygur, who is a Trump deranged hater, he came out and said that Trump looked presidential.
I thought Trump looked presidential and personable. I hate that, but he did. And so the presidential thing is, I mean, as long as you're not listening to him, right? He had a great suit on. He's sitting there and speaking authoritatively. Rogan is having a back and forth conversation with him that seems like two human beings talking. That's definitely helpful to Trump because politicians are normally so awkward, right? But he's speaking to him as a person of authority, and Rogan is deferring to him, and then they like each other, so it goes back and forth smoothly. There aren't talking points. Standard politicians, including Kamala Harris, are talking point machines, and that's not what Trump is doing. I'm going to get to the substance, don't worry, of what he said, and that's where things devolve. But if you're a person looking at it from the outside and you don't know you don't know much about politics and you don't know much about the details of these issues, you look and you go, oh, well, that guy looks like a president. And that guy looks like he's a real human being having a conversation with another human being. He doesn't seem like a robot. He doesn't seem fake in that sense. So, and most people don't know a lot about politics, and undecided people know even less usually because that's why they're taking so long to decide. Now, I know all the facts, so I decided a long time ago, right? So, hence, on the outside, before we get to the actual substance of it, it looks really good for Trump. And you got to be honest about it. If it was, and you know me, if it was a train wreck, I would be very happy to tell you that it was a train wreck and explain exactly how it was, right?
Yeah, so when the Trump deranged haters are saying that the podcast was good and that he looked very presidential, that is very good for Trump, then you know that it was amazing, okay? I thought it was amazing when I listened to it, and that reflects in the numbers here, okay? 1.7 million likes, only 38,000 dislikes on a podcast with 35 million views, okay? A ton of people. Versus Kamala Harris, who decided to go on Shannon Sharpe's podcast And let's just say she is not getting nearly the numbers that she could have gotten had she went on Rogan's show, okay? Because in 5 hours, this interview only has 300,000 views, which is much less than what Trump had in about 5 hours. I think in 5 hours on Joe Rogan, I think Trump had at least a couple million, a few million, right, in a few hours versus a few 100,000 here from Kamala Harris in a couple hours on Club Shay Shay, okay? On top of that, when you look at a ratio here, you have 20,000 likes to 32,000 dislikes, okay? And I guess it's fair to say that Kamala Harris ducked and dodged Joe Rogan because she knew that Joe Rogan was not going to allow her to do what she did with Shannon Sharpe, okay? Shannon Sharpe essentially kissed her ass. He did not push back at all against the propaganda and the nonsense that Kamala Harris was spewing on the platform. And again, that is why the numbers are what they are. She's getting absolutely roasted in the comment section along with Shannon Sharpe for this softball interview. And listen, I can't really hold Shannon Sharpe to a high standard because he's not a journalist, so I can't really criticize him. But I think we can all say that the reason why Kamala Harris did not do the Rogan interview is because she thought that she could get away with doing Shannon Sharpe's podcast instead, because she knew that Shannon Sharpe would not actually get deep into the conversations like Joe Rogan, and that Shannon Sharpe was already on her side, which again showed up throughout this whole interview. Like, for example, when Shannon Sharpe asked her about the Black support or her lack of support from Black people.
Blacks for Trump. They feel that Trump is better for the Black community. Can you explain the Donald Trump's history with Blacks? Where did this come that all of a sudden, I mean, it's been like this because a lot of people used to say, I'm Donald Trump of the ghetto, because he was, I mean, for a lot of Blacks, not all, but for some Blacks, he was, Madam VP, whether we want to admit it or not, he's revered by some Blacks.
But here's the thing. The question for everybody, should he be president of the United States?
Okay.
Right? That's the question. Should he have the ability to sit behind the seal of the president of the United States when he says he wants to terminate the Constitution of the United States? You know what that would mean? In the Constitution of the United States is your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, your Fifth Amendment right, your Sixth Amendment right to an attorney.
Well, a lot of rights going to be gone. The First Amendment.
But the First Amendment, the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Look, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I don't believe we should be taking anybody's guns away.
Flashback. What would you do about the millions of specifically assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
So a buyback program is a good idea. If Congress fails to act, I'll give them 100 days to put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not do it, I will put in place by executive action a comprehensive background check requirement and a ban on the assault weapons and importation of assault weapons into our country. I'm done.
And that's why we will work to pass universal background
That's
checks,
what Mussolini
red
would do.
flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
Take your weapon.
In the community,
That's what
and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Have you heard?
He has not earned the right
Second Amendment
to be president of the United States. It's one thing if he has a television show that's very popular. He can put his name on a building, even though we all know he was not a terribly good businessman, which is why he filed for bankruptcy 6 times. But that is one thing. To be president of the United States means to try and find common ground, to build consensus, to lift up the American people instead of trying to beat people down all the time. It means solving problems, which means you have to be able to get out of your own head and scan to be concerned about the well-being of other people and then do something about it. Does anyone think Donald Trump thinks that way?
He said immigrants are taking Black jobs. I don't know what those Black jobs that they're taking. Can you elaborate on that? What the immigrants are taking? What Black jobs are they?
It's just another example of him trying to divide and him trying to scare people. It's just another example of him doing that, of him trying to say it's either you or them, right? And the other thing is that it's incredibly demeaning because And he still has not been forced to define. Donald Trump, what do you define as a black job? Because let me tell you what I define as a black job. Vice President of the United States.
That's a good one.
Right?
It is. I don't know about the pay, but it's a good job to have. That'll be.
Well, you know, not everybody is Shannon Sharp.
No, but
So so part of what we have to help people understand is don't think you're in Donald Trump's club. You're not.
Right.
He's not going to be thinking about you. You think he's having you over for dinner?
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Now, since the mainstream liberal media is so offended, right, on behalf of so-called minorities over jokes, what is not a joke is this fake black accent that Kamala Harris uses every time she's on a black platform, right? As a black person, I don't get offended by much, if anything at all, really. But what I am kind of offended by is this fake black accent that Kamala Harris puts on anytime she's in a so-called black setting, okay? And this is something that she does quite a bit. Like, for example, yesterday I did a video about Kamala's fake black accent that she put out there while giving a sermon at a black church in Philadelphia.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
Joy cometh in the morning. Apparently, this is how Kamala Harris thinks that black people talk. Okay, this is what she does when she's in these types of settings. Something that JD Vance noticeably does not do. Okay, JD Vance actually did a talk with a black pastor, and notice how he didn't do this kind of pandering, right? He didn't try to offend the audience by trying to pretend that he's somebody that he's not.
Well, Pastor, first of all, thank you for doing this. And I appreciate everybody for having me and for having an open mind to what I'm going to say. And hopefully I'll just answer your questions as well as I can. And, I'd ask, we are in a house of God. Please spare a prayer for me and my family tonight. We certainly need it, and we need the wisdom and the courage of God. So I appreciate being here, and I appreciate everybody being interested in what I have to say. Thank you.
To leverage school choice laws to obtain this vision for America?
I think it is. And, so some things you didn't quite mention, but I think are related is I think that a lot of Christian ministries would love to help folks with childcare, but the federal monies that are out there that go to daycare very often can never be used by churches. Why is that? Why are we making it harder for Christian ministries to do Christian ministry? Why don't we make it easier for them? Because I think that churches are one of the most important, in my view, the most important part of the social fabric of this country. We got to stop trying to cut the church out of doing social services and Christian ministry. It's what they do best.
Yeah, so clearly what you get from JD Vance is something that you don't get from Kamala Harris. Clear answers to the questions, okay? In a way that is thoughtful and articulate without the pandering. Okay, he does not have to put on a black voice. He comes in and he treats black people with respect, like people that should be talked to like normal people, right? Not somebody who's trying to come in and to get their vote and to never do a damn thing that they promised, right? He's not like that, right? He's a real person, okay, which is not what Kamala Harris comes off as, okay, which is why she's getting roasted in the comment section of this interview that is supposed to be home field territory for her, right? People are basically saying, yeah, we're not watching this video. We're just here to read the comments, right? So a vast majority of the views on this video are not people who actually are watching the video and listening to what she has to say, because she says the same thing in every single interview, okay? They're just roasting her up, right? Because of the fact that she doesn't really say anything in these interviews. Okay, let's read here. This person says, Shannon, congratulations for breaking a record for the most non-watch straight to the comments video in Club Shay Shay's history. Quote, tell me about your plan to make the economy better. Shannon, Donald Trump is just a bad man. That's basically how she answers questions. Unc never fact check or challenge her on anything once, and that's crazy, dog. I mean, what did you expect? I said this when she chose not to go on Joe Rogan and to go on Shannon Sharp show. I said, well, the reason why is because she wouldn't be allowed to do what she did on Shannon Sharp show, right? She only went on Shannon Sharp show because she knew it was home field territory. Like, it does not make sense for her to duck the largest podcast in the world but instead take that time to go on a much smaller podcast unless she was not okay with the way that Joe Rogan would conduct the interview, which was not really an interview. It was really just a conversation. She doesn't want to have a real conversation because she's not a real person. Okay. She wants to say, quote, raised in a middle-class family so bad. Here she is lying to the American people about Trump, no tax on overtime, saying companies are not going to be required to pay employees overtime. Come on, bruh. The Better Business Bureau will not allow that. A politician like her should be quiet and let the businessman handle business. I love how she said Trump wants to take away overtime pay when in fact Trump wants to take away the overtime tax. Boom, right? Boom, boom. The people are not fooled by this, okay? They're not fooled by this. This person says, I am only here to write. I can't believe you call her, quote, auntie. Bro ain't never mentioned her his entire life. And now since they push it an agenda, she auntie. Don't consume everything they're giving y'all, not watching this ish. Tell me how she's Christian, grew up Hindu, and celebrating Kwanzaa. So Cat Williams was 100,000% correct. You have an allegiance to loser, Shannon. She did this thinking she would get cat numbers. No, she's not getting cat numbers, right? And again, what's going to happen here is that nobody's going to watch this video, okay? And it's not going to get that many views because nobody's actually watching it. Everybody's going to the comment section, and YouTube is going to pick up an algorithm that nobody's watching this, so they're going to recommend it to less people, right? That's exactly what's about to happen to this video, okay? That's what's about to happen. And people thought the Rogan and Trump podcast was a straight up glaze session. Yeah, that's what this was. Projection is the only thing the Democrats are good at this point. Okay, they're not good at anything else except projection. She didn't drink the shot, but sounded tipsy anyways. Yeah. So again, this is not good, right? This is not good at all. These are the top comments. These are not just random comments. And everybody is agreeing that, hey, this is not good for Kamala Harris, right? It's not good for Shannon Sharpe. It's not a good look. They can see that he clearly is pushing the agenda here. He's just being used as a pawn, as a tool. And I think, again, the more of these interviews that she does, the worse that it gets for her because people can see that she's not a real person, right? She's fake. All Kamala Harris has to do is to do one interview in which she actually comes off as an authentic person, right? Which she had the opportunity to do on Rogan. And if she just would have did it and just come off as a normal person, that honestly probably would have helped her. But again, she's so trapped in her little bubble, right? She's so afraid of any type of real pushback or having a real conversation or getting off of her talking points or her script that she's choosing to do all of these interviews that are essentially softballs, and it's just not working for her at this point. But hey, I hope she continues to do these interviews, right? Because the more these interviews that she does, the worse that it gets for her. It shows the world that she's very fake. She's very scripted. She's, again, not real, okay? You can't believe a word that she says. She just lies. And it's just going to continue to hurt her, okay? And it's also going to be good content for me, right? So I am hoping and praying that she continues to do this, right? Kamala, keep doing these interviews, okay? Keep on doing what you're doing right now. You're doing a great job at helping Trump win. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative.
Yoichi Clark Shimatsu. All right, guys. So we previously told you that there is a journalist, an accomplished journalist named Yoichi Clark Shimatsu, formerly the editor of the Japan Times, who made some stunning claims about Kamala Harris and her late mother, Shamla Goplin. As a graduate of Berkeley University, Clark, as he prefers to be called, ran in the same circles as them. And he claims that Kamala's mother was a part of the CIA's MK Ultra program, a psychopathic, sadistic program that ran throughout the 60s, probably is still running today, in which Americans and even government agents alike were drugged and sometimes murdered with the aim of brainwashing the masses. Clark also claims, rather stunningly, that Kamala Harris was previously married to a wealthy Canadian, a marriage which her connections to the deep state have gone through great pains to delete from public record. So is he telling the truth? Well, I'll let you decide, because today we welcome him onto the show. Welcome back to Candace. Okay, Yoichi Clark, it is an honor to have you join the show today. I'm just going to let guests know that you are joining by audio because you are in a very remote area, but welcome to the Candace Show.
Well, thank you very much. Very glad. I'm a rather minor character in this border drama right now, and I'm afraid communications where I am really they've been tampered with because of the border situation. It's terrible.
Well, you might be a minor character down there, but you're definitely a major character on my podcast right now. We have just been crawling through Kamala's background and her history. I'm sure you're very aware of that. And we did come across your piece, which was quite fascinating for a lot of reasons. You had mentioned a previous marriage that Kamala had. You had mentioned the MK Ultra program. I would like to just start with Kamala's mother and speak about the MK Ultra program, because it's actually a program that I have been speaking about at length on the podcast this year, that I've been asking Americans and the world to really familiarize themselves with. So can you just let us know how it is that you are familiar with Shamla Goplin, Kamala's mother's work, and what it is that you know about her, please?
Well, I was sort of a contemporary of theirs in the Berkeley area. I worked at a news service in San Francisco, Pacific News Service, and so very familiar with the characters there, where she lived, of the foreign student population at Berkeley. And I did attend the journalism school, the graduate school of journalism at Berkeley. So this is all familiar ground for me. Kamala was a prosecutor later when she was behind the incarceration of like hundreds and probably thousands of young Black juvenile delinquents. Yeah, there was young kids, but you have to understand the situation then. The older guys who were running the drug trade for the cartel at the schools, they would forcibly recruit these young guys, and she was just slamming them into prison. It was just horrible, and that's one reason why a lot of Black men refuse to vote for her now. She just that one-sided treatment, while she let all the major cartel figures walk, or just warned them, get out of here, because the cops are trying to arrest you. So she was in the thick of it. She was the girlfriend of Willie Brown, who was a lawyer. He had a law office for the cartel. Later, he became mayor and a state senator. But she was just in the dirty business. And one of my best friends and proteges, Jeff Adachi, died mysteriously.
Yes, let's actually speak about that. So you have a young friend and your protege named Jeff Adachi, and the first time that I had come across his name was in your piece, and I did do a little bit of research, and it is a fact that he did die rather mysteriously, and I think it would be fair to say that he was a contender of Willie Brown's office. Willie Brown was running somebody against him, definitely made enemies, I would say, of the Democrat elite class in San Francisco. So could you just inform my readers a little bit more about Jeff Adachi?
The thing is, he was at Bolt Hall as a contemporary of Kamala's. He was a straight A student, and she was, they were going to kick her out because her grades were so bad. And they didn't think she'd make it in the law. She's never been a good speaker. And he was appointed to be her tutor and got her through Bolt to get her degree. Later on, she was hired to be public prosecutor. And strangely enough, he was a public defender. And he set up this huge program in which a lot of people really, like a lot of parents in the Western Addition and in the Fillmore, those are Black districts, were really enthusiastic because he was getting the kids out of prison. These were really hardcore prisons, and getting them into special ed programs, educational programs, work study programs, and straightening them out. And hundreds of kids, and so the community was overjoyed. And then one day he was found dead in his apartment. And they made all kinds of things that, he had this affair with this Russian woman, as if she had killed him. But no, she was just a visitor in town. He had gone over to visit and chat with her. And then the autopsy was also the first one said, oh, he was died of all these drugs. The second autopsy showed him to be clean. So this was just a major, I hate to use the word conspiracy, but that was a conspiracy about his murder to eliminate the guy who knew too much about Kamala, had opposed her treatment of young people. And they offed him, basically.
Well, you're on the right program to talk about conspiracies. I'll tell you that for free. One of the things that I've noted is that it does seem that part of this, if you want to call it a cabal, call it a mafia, one thing that they understand is to make sure that they control the medical examiner's office. And I don't think that there's any person in the entire world who would doubt that now, especially following COVID, that medical examiner offices are polluted with politics. And yes, if you're listening to this, you should look into the Jeff Adachi story. There's no question. You have a young person who has his entire life ahead of him. He dies rather suspiciously, and then the media starts throwing out all of these theories, which is what they tend to do. They create a bunch of theories so that it confuses the masses, and they look everywhere but where they should be looking. Now, I did not realize that he had helped Kamala in the past. I did not realize that they had a relationship.
But you would not have gone into the law without his, guidance and really attention. And it took a lot of time away from him. He was not a rich person. His father was an automobile mechanic. He worked his way through school. I mean, and as a straight A student, that's just amazing. Really nice kid. He helped me out a lot with the Southeast Asian refugees following the Vietnam War when they were banned from coming to the U.S. And I was dealing with a flood of them and needed some legal help because we were lobbying Congress. And Jeff just stepped right forward, took care of it, and really great kid. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, he really clean kid. We would go to bars in Japantown. Good singer at karaoke, but he didn't drink a drop. He was just a totally nice kid, all American.
And just what was the year, by the way, in which he passed? Or around about?
I think he died in the early 90s. I was by then in Japan. I had been hired after the San Francisco earthquake, major paper in Japan. So I took off, and I didn't hear about his death from my friends, because they were so tied up with it. And it was only much later that I found I heard that Jeff. I said, "What happened to Jeff?" And he says, "Oh, didn't you hear? He died." And then.
What is it?
It was a stunning shock to me, and there was nothing I could do it at the beginning. So it took me a long time to catch up with Kamala on this one.
Okay, so what is it about Kamala that Jeff Adachi knew that you believe would have created some conflict for her?
The cartel connection. Yeah. It wasn't mafia. It wasn't conspiracy. It was a cartel. She was an agent of the cartel. And I know other stories too about members of that. When San Francisco was very close circles, not a large city.
Right. We heard the same thing from Judge.
I knew everything else, and no one really wanted to talk except me. I worked at the Pacific News Service, and I broke these stories. But even they were scared to take on the cartel.
Very interesting. And, I did recently speak to Judge Joe Brown, and he kind of intimated the same, that she was definitely involved in a lot of dirty politicking, and especially Willie Brown as well. And you mentioned Willie Brown in your piece and his connection, which you allegedly had to the cartel. Could you expand on that, please?
Yeah, well, he was from West Texas. He was there's a lot in California, a lot of immigrants from West Texas. When the cattle industry the ranching industry wasn't doing well, they migrated west. He got a law degree, I believe in San Francisco. And his contact with the cartel was very, very early on. They probably helped him get his law degree. I remember one time he knew me. We were going to a public event. It was sort of like a carnival that there was going to be some speeches at. I'll speak there, and I was walking toward that with my girlfriend, and then he comes walking right behind me, grabs me by the left arm and squeezes my arm as hard as he can. But you have to understand. I used to be a steel worker, a welder. I worked all kinds of jobs earlier in my life, so I was tough as nails. And once he felt my muscles flexing, he opened his hand up and just walked past me, fast as hell, sort of in humiliation. They couldn't intimidate me. That's the kind of guy he was.
Wow, unbelievable! You hear these stories.
He was a very threatening fellow, and He knows me. When I talked about the another girlfriend of him is London Breen. She's a mayor of San Francisco, and the first thing she does for homeless people as a welcome wagon is give them a pack of syringes and a bottle of heroin to inject.
Wow.
This is not a joke. This is what they're doing there.
And so working on behalf of the cartel, and we heard from Judge Joe Brown last week also that while she was in power in San Francisco, that she worked to help George Soros essentially commit legal theft by protecting one of his companies. And so we're hearing over and over again that essentially she was given power to make sure that the elites are allowed to continue these various illegal trades that they're participating in. And you seem to confirm that. I do want to...
San Francisco was run by basically the Jewish mafia. Dianne Feinstein, she was born a Catholic and went to Catholic girls' school. But she married a Jewish guy and then just flipped over. And then... and I knew, and the Jews were behind the drug industry there. I remember visiting the Harlem one because a friend told me, "Oh, we got to go over there and visit this guy." And we went there, and sure enough, he was the biggest dope dealer distributor in San Francisco. He ran a garage, the big public garage in the middle of the city, where was a lot of money laundering. He was there right there, shameless about it, counting the cash at his little desk while his wife jumped on me and started rubbing her boobs on my face.
Who was this?
I forget his name. He was the major money launderer for the cartel, and the laundry was this huge public garage that everyone in San Francisco that parked there, because it's a very bad city, had to use. This like 6-story garage, and then he lived on Goat Hill there in a big mansion. And I was just invited there by a friend, and we were smoking some weed, and he was saying, this is the greatest era in American history because of heroes like what's his name, the head of Microsoft,
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, he's a giant of American industry, and I said, this guy's out of his mind. He's smoking too much. He's smoking too much of the product that he's been selling. So.
Wow,
he was very core to the whole Jewish lawyers, but more important, the real estate industry, because that's why they had all the young boys arrested. They clear out the Western Addition because they want to put up nice, cute little apartments and cottages for the gays coming in from all over the country, because they figure. Because most of them come from rich families. They live like 5 to a house to a building, share quarters, and they're going to die of AIDS, within the next 6 years. So the house will be up for real estate again.
Wow.
It's really cynical. It's like, this is like a Dracula movie. It's something out of this world. And this was America's most liberal city.
All right, guys, the media has dubbed this the abortion election. We have to stand up to this evil. When you join forces with Preborn, the largest pro-life organization in the nation, you are protecting the greatest victims in our society, babies in their mothers' wombs. Preborn's network of clinics are positioned in the highest abortion areas in the nation, and they have rescued over 300,000 babies. When a woman considering abortion searches to end her baby's life, Preborn is there. Preborn gives these women in need a free ultrasound. The power of hearing a heartbeat on an ultrasound combined with God's love doubles a baby's chance at life. One ultrasound costs just $28, and up to 5 ultrasounds are $140. Any gift will help their cause, and all gifts are tax deductible. To donate securely, just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. Again, that's pound 250 baby. Or you can go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. Yeah. And it's like I said, it's stunning because we had Judge Joe Brown on here and he's confirming all of the same things. He was speaking about Martin Luther King's assassination. He was speaking about, how the government had a hand in that. And it is, I think, for a lot of people who over 1 million people, I think 1.5 million people have watched that episode. And they said, I feel like I'm learning American history for the first time, because you learn in your textbooks that everything was just above board and America has just been this great country. And, it's very stunning to hear from people who grew up in these various cities about, mafia related crimes, talking about drugs, talking about the corruption of Kamala Harris and how she was in the weeds on this, and quite terrifying knowing that she is trying to be elected as the president of the United States. I do want to shift gears and talk about her mother, because I was quite stunned by your assertion that she was involved in the MK Ultra program, and yet that to me seemed to be the only thing that made sense, because she seemed to be sort of infiltrating the civil rights movement. And I'm going, what is this alleged brilliant scientist doing, constantly involving herself in civil rights protests and making friends with these individuals? And because I'm well read on the MK Ultra program, I recognize the connection there. Can you speak about what she did, or what you are alleging she did? Yeah.
Well, the first thing, look at first base, you gotta understand that the Pollen clan, they were like clerks, judges, spies for the British when India was a British colony. And Miss Kamala was born when it was still a British colony. So the rest of the country was up in arms fighting against the British, but they were very, very loyal to the British intelligence service and police service in India. So this is how they all got ahead, by catering to the British. And that enabled Shyamala Gopalan, when she was, after she got her degree in Madras, India, to enter UC Berkeley, which is not the cheapest school in the universe, nor is California a really inexpensive place to go. It's one of the most expensive places. I know. I went to school there. It's very expensive there. She worked at the monkey lab there. She was into it's a real strange combination of psychology and simian studies and zoology. Okay, and she was an expert, training monkeys and all that. And Madras is an area, her hometown, where there's a lot of monkeys running around the Hindu temples and all that. And so she's very familiar and very good with them. And she developed the theory that and this was a time of Jane Goodall. There's a huge boom of women who work with apes. Okay, there were ape programs set up all across the United States and England and Europe, out of excitement of the Goodall story, news stories. And Goodall were treating apes, the monkey children, as sort of like human children, and getting some very, very good responses of taming them. Mm-hmm. So she was of that school. Now, what happened while she was at UC Berkeley? After she got her degree, she moved out of Berkeley and took her 2 kids and divorced her husband, this guy Harris, Donald Harris, who was, at the time he was in biology, then he went into law, divorced him and moved to San Francisco and did nothing for 2 years. She waited 2 years while her application was in to a hospital in Montreal. So this was the Jewish hospital in Montreal, okay, that she applied to.
Yes, that's where she eventually did work. Yeah, she was eventually employed there.
Process, because they had to check all your background, everything, every little detail about her. And this is because the very famous psychiatrist who really got the MK Ultra program going, Ewan Cameron. He was a Scottish guy, a pedophile, and he was a torturer. He used all sorts of drugs on victims of that program. He passed away, and there was like about 7 to 8 year hiatus where his program was shut down because there was no one in charge, and they had to move the program because Congress, there was a secret, not so secret. There was an investigation in Congress about MK Ultra, so the heat was on the Canadians. The UN Cameron's lab was in Montreal. Okay, so the heat was on the Canadians to fess up, so they shut that lab down. There's an infamous Allen lab, and then they wanted to set up another center, also connected to the University of McGill University there in Montreal. They had to have that certification. And in the meanwhile, they were trying to find the new director to take over from them. And she finally got the call. They brought her over. They set her up at another one at the Jewish Hospital Annex. And she took charge of not only the monkey lab, she took charge of the patient care. ward.
Oh,
It was a small patient care ward because that hospital, Jewish Memorial, had a psychiatric clinic also. So she worked as a psychiatrist there in a very small division, which became the new the Center for the Revived MK Ultra program.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask a question here. So I did not realize that the person who started the program was a psychologist named Cameroon. I was under the impression that the person, Ewan Cameron, yeah, I was under the impression that it was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb who.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Sidney Gottlieb was a gopher. He was applied. He wasn't into research.
Okay.
He just applied everything Cameron had developed.
Okay.
Use of drugs, hypnotism, light deprivation, all of those nasty techniques to destroy a human willpower.
Wow.
Capture their brain. Gottlieb is a famous one, and everyone thinks MK Ultra was basically American technique. No, it came out of London. It came out of the Tavistock Institute of Sigmund Freud.
Yes.
World War II.
I am just so shocked that you are bringing this up because I got into a lot of trouble with the media for discussing Sigmund Freud at length, and I've been doing it on this podcast. It's super important for people to learn the truth about him, that he was a person who created a method of psychology essentially to gaslight people who were in fact being molested by their own parents, and that that's why he was obsessed with children and sex. And it's shocking that we learned that he's a hero in psychology. And it's just very important for people to learn the truth about him because psychology is then, his family is then what bred propaganda. That would be the Bernays family and Edward Bernays. And you are correct. This all fits right into the MK Ultra program, which was designed to see how you could break down someone's will, how you could hypnotize them. We spoke at length on this show about how the Charles Manson murders, that was actually the CIA and everything that the public thinks they know about that. Same areas you're talking about, San Francisco, California, these are federal agents that were obsessed with learning how to hypnotize the public, how to destroy people's will. And a big part of that was molestation. And Sigmund Freud had, in fact, written pieces about how, molesting someone when they are a child, sodomizing, they were interested in exploring how they could create psychopaths. That's also another element of these programs and psychology. And I think it's hard for people to come to terms with how evil that is. And you're now saying that Shamala got the call and she then took a part in this program of testing patients.
Military intelligence created this.
Wow.
The brainwashing techniques they developed obviously massively during World War II because they tried to use that against the enemy, German allies, and so on, and reluctant the German enemy, and also against reluctant allies. They tried to use mind control techniques. But after the war, I think it was in the late 1940s, so 1946, between 1946 and 1948, the British military created the Tavistock Institute, which is on Tavistock Square in London. Sigmund Freud himself flew over from Switzerland to London to cut the opening ribbon. And then he assigned one of his sons to be the director of the place. He was right behind. He was the main psychiatrist in the family.
Yes, I'm familiar with Tavistock. There is also some indication that even the Beatles and music has come out of Tavistock University and how it could transform. Yeah, modifying human behavior.
That their craziest album is all about mind control.
Right. That's exactly right.
And so then what happened? This came under some parliamentary review. There's some complaints, so they decided to move the core of the program to Montreal, former a British colony, close to the United States, for contact, and sort of out of the way. Who would ever suspect that this dark devious program is going on in beautiful, wonderful forested Canada, right?
Wow.
And the French part of Canada too. Who would ever suspect that? And they could use the French as guinea pigs, right?
Yeah.
Now, when Kamala came in, there was concern about the British colonies, and so Shamala was more adapting this to the colonial subjects, not just the Caucasian people. And so they sent over a British disinfo agent, Hardy L. Baines. He was a character. I've actually been to one of his speech. The case, he was very intelligent, perfect English, but obviously there was something touched about his brain. And then he created the Communist Party Marxist-Leninist, okay, of Canada. Okay, it's the only communist party in Canada. And really evil character, okay? And the patients that Shyamala was producing for, very convenient, both Indians. He was a Sikh, but very independent of the Sikh movement. He was not part of the Sikh liberation movement. Him and Shyamala were we call conspirators, I guess you call them. She would give him her patients, the young ones, especially they were focusing on younger people. They thought older people were not great subjects for this program. You use young guys who've been out of orphanages, out of prisons, and so on, juvenile detention. He put them with Hardio, and he did this thing called the living statues. Okay. He would. I saw one I think it was a July 4th weekend. I was off. I had a lot of jobs in New York, but July 4th, I was my rare 4-day holiday. I took off with a bunch of friends and one Canadian guy who wanted to go home. We drove up there all night, and in the morning, as we approached Montreal, we saw the human statues, on the road. So we slowed down and stopped. Got out. My friends were pretty rowdy and been drinking beer all night. Walked up to these guys. They're guys and women, girls, guys and girls. They were all in these revolutionary poses, posing like Russian revolutionaries, some with their fists up, other holding up a stick like it's a gun and all that. Right on a public road, okay, a major highway. Not a major highway, but a highway. We got out. My friends walk up to them and start to boo, try to get them to flutter, to wince. They wouldn't move at all. They're frozen. I said, and one guy wanted to poke one in me. I said, better not do that, man. If you could be sued if you're gouge your guy's eye. And then we all got spooked at once. They said, this is really, really, really weird. We got to get out of here as fast as we can. So we jumped back in car and went to Montreal for basically a weekend bash, what turned out to be a total bust. And so I got a glimpse of the Living Statues program. This was later applied to the Vietnam War. Okay, soon thereafter, the CIA recruited. They just put together a group of 200 special combatants to helicopter into the Ho Chi Minh Trail into Cambodia and Laos because they were it's illegal to fight war then. Each guy as a loner would be dropped off in a helicopter. He could run like up to 410, so endlessly. These are really mind control people. They would hide behind a tree trunk like up to 2 or 3 days to await the person the officer they're supposed to shoot, to kill, without going to the toilet, without batting their eyelashes, and in that same frozen pose. And then with some sort of timer they had, I have no idea, the timer would put them awake, warning them that the guy's coming down the road. They take a shot at him, kill him, and then run like hell. Now, out of that program of 200, there were only 12 survivors to 30 dozen, we call them. They got back to the United States. The Army flew them back. They were all at the CIA headquarters together, and CIA said, we don't know what the hell you're talking about. We don't know who you are. You're lying, and kicked them out. And they became sort of a motorcycle gang in North Dakota and Western Colorado. And I met one of them, so I knew the backstory of it. He was a Canadian Indian.
Wow. This is
there at Shyamala's facility when he was a kid, when he was young, a teenager.
Do you think you know who will win the presidential election or how many seats Democrats or Republicans will win in the House or Senate? Well, there's a legal financial exchange that lets you trade or bet on the outcome of these elections, and it's called Kalshi. Kalshi went to court against the Biden administration and won legal approval for election betting for the first time in over 100 years. They have markets on who will win the presidential election, who will control the House and Senate, who will win swing states, and more. Kalshi is already being used by hundreds of thousands of people and has facilitated over $1 billion worth of trades. What's cool about the platform is that you can trade on your opinions to make money or hedge your political risks. You can also check the market odds to see who is more likely to win at any given time. Right now, the odds are near 58-42. Not surprisingly, Trump is up big. The election markets are now live to trade. They are the first regulated place where you can do this. Right now, when you sign up at kalshi.com/Candace, the first 500 traders who deposit $100 will get a free $20 credit. That's kalshi.com/Candace. So I'll tell you what spooks me about what you're saying. First and foremost, the more that I have dug into her genealogy, there are a couple of aspects there that are fitting a little too perfectly with what you're telling me, realizing that her family was involved in the slave trade, that they were involved in Freemasonry, that for whatever reason, she's trying to make everyone believe she's every ethnicity but what she is, which we have been able to determine from Kamala's family, who have been very forthcoming and don't support what she's doing. Some people in her family have told us, look, we're Syrian Jews. I don't know why she's hiding this fact. And then some of her family members who are Jewish in Canada said the exact same thing. Like, we all feel like she's trying to hide the Jewish aspect, which is quite strange. The other thing that alarms me about what you're saying, though, is for Kamala to engage in this and to engage in what can only be described as program was human torture, to see if you could basically set a human being to blank, set a human being to zero, and fill them with whatever you wanted to do, turn them into robots. And there is an aspect of Kamala that feels as though she herself has been brainwashed. And I vividly recall her relative who I spoke to saying that far from the depictions of her relationship with her mother that she gives to the public today, her mother was militant, is what he said. Her mother was absolutely militant with her children, and she now makes it seem as though she had this flowery childhood. So you have this woman who, for work, is engaging in this psychiatric torture of citizens from around the world. And then you hear from her family member that she was militant with her children. And then I watch Kamala's behavior today, and it seems like she is a blank slate in which she allows every personality to fill. Like, she can be Jamaican yesterday, she can be Hispanic tomorrow, she can act like a black preacher as she's just done. And that terrifies me in a sense. It's almost as though Kamala herself has been brainwashed. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. You got to understand, her mother had to take care of these patients. They're her treasure. They're, that's her ride, that's her income. She was able to buy a house with all that, and a pretty damn good house in Montreal. But her problem is she couldn't take care of her daughters. She's so much with the patients. So she had to regimen them. And she did with the techniques that she knew, and they were basically MK Ultra light. Let's say MK Ultra light rather than the whole treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
And that accounts for her weird speech patterns, or her sort of bizarre eye movements and body movements, or jerky stuff. That's just straight like these MK Ultra guys that you will meet. Like the one super soldier I met. He's perfectly normal over beer, and suddenly you go into his crazy jerky fits where it could be dangerous. He could kill you, So, that's basically the same as Kamala. Again, she had a lighter version of it. That she got the whole hog. They didn't send her to Syria, to kill a bunch of jihadists or anything. But she has definitely been touched by that. And her sister also. She was another one, Maya. She was one of the three main campaign advisors to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
Right.
So they were placed there sort of as controllers. And look at Hillary, what happened to her? From a sort of a goofy person into a robotic person.
Right.
Same thing. The program continued, and her sister was the minder. She had been through the program, and somehow they got Hillary into the program. Scary stuff what they were doing,
Yeah.
And the scary stuff is after that program in Montreal and the congressional investigation in the USA by Congress, the whole thing disappeared off the face of the earth. We didn't get these glimmers after that, We know that big Seattle Anti-World Trade Organization protest by the labor unions. And my ex-wife was a member of the Culinary Workers Union in San Francisco. She was up there. She said, "Oh, a bunch of these crazy guys from Canada wearing masks. There were these small, short guys, and then these big, tall guys came throwing rocks at us. Hurling rocks at us like crazy guys. And while the tall guys watch." And I told her back then, "Oh, those are some of the MK Ultra patients, and the tall guys are the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, keeping an eye on them."
That's just unbelievable. And it's funny that you bring up her sister.
In the late 80s, so the program cranked on, but they found, instead of just murdering people, probably this Black Lives Matter thing also. You had all these very weird people coming in and starting a lot of trouble, violence.
Oh, yeah.
Where most of the protesters were they're just laid back hippies,
Yeah.
So I think that was another MK operation too, especially when the rioting was going on. It was 4 days of rioting or something, burned up properties, killed a bunch of people.
Oh, there was no question that was a Fed operation. I mean, when I observed it, it had all of the aspects.
He is. You look at Portland, Oregon, and you look at Minneapolis, close to the Canadian border. Okay, close to the Canadian border for these operatives to come down.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, it was just amazing. The police just couldn't arrest these people. They just couldn't make it happen. But then January 6th, they're suddenly able to identify every single person who attended. And so you really understood that the government was involved, because when they want to capture people, they certainly do. And when they don't, they certainly don't. And it's interesting you bring up her sister Maya, because very recently I was able to determine how strange it is that her daughter, which is a young woman named Demeanor Harris, has no father. And what I mean by that, and we just keep seeing this happen, is that she had a child allegedly when she was a teenager, and there's no father on the birth certificate, and nobody knows who the father is. And we have been kind of obsessed with, on this podcast, with this recent recognition that it appears as though they're breeding politicians. They all have this very shady background. Everything you're speaking about reminds me of the Emmanuel Macron upbringing and his story and all of the strange aspects. And he's married to a person who lived as a man for 30 years. And the entire state is colluding to gaslight the public on this fact, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. All of the evidence pointing to the fact that Emmanuel Macron is married to a man who at best committed statutory rape against him when he was a teenager. And so we're seeing this program sort of writ large across society. And it's difficult to communicate to people who are still asleep and who still hold this faith that, this process that's happening is above board and democratic, and that we're truly a republic, and not that there is sort of this hand that is maneuvering behind the scenes to elect certain politicians to essentially fulfill their sadistic aims.
You're absolutely right. It's Franken politics is what it is. We've got a bunch of brain dead maniacs taking orders, and you wonder what they did to Joe Biden. He's so dependent on his teleprompter and that whatever the wire they've got inside of him, that they seem to be able to take all sorts of people under. As far as Maya's kid, it's Willie Brown's a pretty tough guy, man. So it could be Daddy Willie.
Wow.
Willie lives alone in this like 20-story apartment in San Francisco. And he likes to pick the fruit. Like I said, he likes to pick the containers. The next successful black female political hero out of San Francisco, Willie Brown's got to put the tap on her.
Oh, my goodness.
Surprise if it's good old Uncle Willie.
I do want to also ask you, by the way, since we're talking about Kamala and her relationships and this kind of open secret, that, I mean, there really is no other way to say it, but she slept her way to her position of power. It was handed power. This was not a meritocracy in San Francisco. This was whether you were in with the mafia or out with the mafia. But you had mentioned in your piece that Kamala was previously married. And that is rather explosive. You said that she was married to a Canadian Brit and that you remember seeing the marriage vividly.
About 10 years ago, I saw the article. I always don't know if I see Kamala in the news, I always take note of it. But I was just reading it on on an airplane or something. So I couldn't steal the magazine. And I read, she was married to a Canadian Brit guy, happily married and living in Montreal. And he had some business in Toronto also.
Okay.
Apparently their house was in Montreal. That's all I remember of the thing. It was just something I read and I just had curiosity about. And I really regret I didn't tear the page out and stuff in my shirt. I should have done it. Sometimes I'm just too honest.
So it must have been a very quick marriage, because then she very quickly thereafter married Doug Emhoff.
Yeah, that's what that struck me. And then Emhoff's got daughters, and the wife is still good and friends with Kamala. And like I say, because of the Jewish, he's in so-called in film production, okay, financing film production, but he doesn't have a list of films anywhere, okay. His name's not on any billboard. So the question is that just a cover? Was that San Francisco again? Was that cover?
Yes. Well, someone did tell me something off record about their relationship.
If in fact, she was still married and maybe still married to that Canadian businessman, she's probably a Canadian and a British citizen herself, which would make her ineligible to run for nation's highest office. We don't allow Brits to sit in the Oval Office, basically, not since they burned down the White House.
Well, we also don't allow Kenyans, but that's taken place in the past before. It really is just incredible. Well, I'm going to continue to see if we can find a trace of this. As I said,
the secret life of Kamala Harris. It's just fascinating, but it's also horrifying, because I'm not disgusted or hate her or anything. It's just she is just one of the last great products of MK Ultra. I mean, so that's my interest. Is clinical.
The economy has been a major burden on the average American. Wages are flat, expenses are up, and it is very hard to manage to pay all of the bills without using credit cards. If you're a homeowner and you're frustrated with that cycle, I need you to make a 10-minute no obligation call today to my friends at American Financing. Interest rates are coming down and they are now in the low 5s. If you're constantly carrying a credit card balance each and every month with a rate in the 20s, American Financing can show you how to put your hard-earned equity to work and get you out of debt. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving their customers an average of $800 a month. And if you get started today, you may not even have to make next month's mortgage payment. So call today at 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's americanfinancing.net/Owens. And it's funny that you say, because realizing how effective the MK Ultra program has been in creating various mass psychoses, and truly you can see how the media is able to just say something and therefore it is true, and people get into line, and it modifies everyone's behavior. To have a woman who never ever made a claim that she was Black all throughout her career, and said she was an Indian, and then suddenly she doesn't even win. They just assert that this is the woman who's going to be the front runner for the Democratic Party. And within 2 weeks, they're suddenly doing interviews and she's speaking about her Black upbringing and drops a book to that effect. And to see the public or at least too large a portion of the public readily accept that is terrifying. There's an element of it that is terrifying, that people do not ordain to think for themselves or to question that narrative. It really shows you really the success of Sigmund Freud, and perhaps why they do celebrate him in the textbooks is because he, for the elites, represents their ability to recognize that it is possible. It is possible to easily persuade the masses with enough insistence about virtually anything. And if we're being convinced about Kamala Harris and her Black heritage and the struggle that she purports that she lived through when she was a child, then we're ready to be convinced about anything, I would say.
Yeah. And there's the other weird coincidence is that her running mate, who is like the unlikely running mate, Tim Walz, he's governor of Minnesota, right there on the Canadian border, and he was involved in counterfeit smuggling of trainloads of money from China. He's been in China 30 times, And oddly, I never saw him there. I was in East Asia for 25 years, often went to Beijing, different towns in China, Guangzhou, Beijing, all over the place. And I would have seen him sometimes. I never saw him, and I did a recent story just issued, I said recently, about counterfeit, how the counterfeit dollar business went from Britain. Britain shut it down because of the EU business, all the other Western EU, the EU currency. They created a common currency basically to stop the counterfeiting out of Britain and Holland, the Netherlands. Okay, so I talked to a top artist there, Rembrandt. His name was. He's a direct descendant of the Rembrandt regime, the great world's greatest painter, basically. Interesting fellow. And after my call, they threw him in jail. But he told me all about the counterfeit trail from the Netherlands, mafia. He said, we have the world's best engravers. The British have the best inks and paper. We have the best engravers, from that Renaissance era. And then the money goes from the Netherlands to Indonesia, Jakarta. And I went there and they said, yeah, it's the local military government purchased all these Boeing airliners from this very corrupt representative who used to be the U.S. ambassador to Thailand, pedophile, basically. And from there, the airliners taken to points in Asia, and where it then crosses over to the USA. But U.S. is pretty tough on counterfeit. They get detected, so it goes to Canada. They told me this. This is in Indonesia.
Wow.
So this is all part of Waltz's thing. And he's another bizarre figure, too. His father was a psycho, because he was in the Korean War and had all these nightmares, beat his kid, beat his wife. So Tim was traumatized and found his shelter, his home, his alter parentage was he felt that the Chinese Communist Party is my dad, is my mother, this is how he thought. And so he's been a long-term agent. And 25 years, I never saw him at any of the hangouts or anything like that, or on the train or plane or anything. And I said, that's really, really odd. He must be at one of the party camps. He must be. So that's the counterfeit, the whole counterfeit. Because I'm very aware of it because I live down near the Mexican border, and I've had money seized here. Everyone here along the border has usually $20 bills and 50s. They don't even check the ones, but the 20 and 50s, everyone has had money confiscated. There's so much counterfeit down here, and this is from the Tim Waltz Chinese network, undermining the U.S. currency. So
this is unbelievable.
It's also in league with the cartel. They're all allied with the cartel. That's why Donald Trump, he shut down the Chinese consulate in Houston. So this whole southwest area is flooded with counterfeit, and it's really because when the bank, you go to a bank like Wells Fargo, you say, here's a pack of 20s. I want to deposit this in my account. I got some bills to pay. Tell her we'll run it through a machine, and then she will, without saying a word, go to the back room, come back out, and say, well, your deposit is $180. I said, I gave you $200. She says, you gave me $180 of real money.
Wow.
That's how it goes down. This is widespread down here. There's not a family here who hasn't lost money because of counterfeit.
That's just incredible. Yeah, that is really incredible. And it's, like I said, fascinating because it's almost the only thing that makes sense when you speak about Kamala Harris and all of these odd aspects of her behavior, of the things that she seems to be hiding about her family lineage. I mean, how much of a psychopath do you have to be to know that you descend from the very people who enslaved Black Americans, enslaved Black Africans, in Jamaica? And by the way, brutal. Hamilton Brown was absolutely brutal, really fought for the right to whip them and to be able to abuse them, then intimately involved themselves when the slave trade ended, involved themselves into every layer of government. Then her family was involved in oil, Standard Oil down in Cuba. And these are all the things that once you start looking, you see it's apparent. But to think that this woman can get up there and lie and feel nothing, as she then just takes on the character of somebody who is a descendant of slavery, should alarm everyone. It should alarm every single person to know that she lies and feels nothing. Really, to me, only a person who has been through some level of brainwashing it would be capable of doing this.
See, this is all possible because you got to understand the relationship to Near Eastern Jews, the Sassoon family, who ran the opium trade in China, turned China into the sick man of Asia. Nearly every Chinese was addicted. Remember that in late 19th century? And so you have that Near Eastern Jewish element combined with this Chinese financing of her campaign. Okay. And Shanghai, right? I'm very familiar with Shanghai, and unfortunately, I have very, very good media friends in China. In fact, one of them died recently, who told me, the Shanghai Party Committee, the most powerful group in China, they're not full Chinese. They're descendants of Chinese Jews, of the opium, of the Sassoon's opium business. Okay? So if you got to understand that Chinese, Middle East Jewish connection to control the world's money and also to control the world's drugs. That's how you control the money. That's what the Harris-Walz campaign is all about. Those are the people behind it.
Wow. Well, I can tell you that this conversation...
This is not some small crime network. This is about global power. And what they're running now is that the United States is the sick man of the Americas.
Yeah, we are.
To hell, just what they did to China to break Chinese power. It was a powerful empire, very wealthy.
Right, that is my fear, is that if she gets into power, it is game over, lights off for America. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show and to speak about this today. Obviously, you've given us so much information, and it's going to send us down a million more rabbit holes. It gives me the confidence to know that the stuff that we have uncovered thus far is alarming, and that there are, like I said, Americans of every single race and background are realizing that there is something very wrong with the Kamala Harris campaign, of every religion is recognizing that there is something very wrong with the Kamala campaign. And it has been really a collaborative effort of everyone sending me information and tidbits and saying, hey, I remember this about her. Like I said, even her own family, who does not support this communist endeavor, is raising alarms here and red flags and telling me things that she is saying that are just not true about their family. And so I hope for the people that are listening to this, that it further illuminates you. If you are listening to this, please share this. We obviously are already heading to the polls, and it's just important that we can notify as many people about Tim Walz, about Kamala Harris, about her true genealogy, about her true political aims, and about her true upbringing as humanly possible. I do, Yoichi Clark, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your bravery. I appreciate your willingness to be condemned by the media, which you most certainly will be alongside me. But I believe that it's going to take independent warriors for truth in order for everyone in the world to be awakened to what sorts of evil we are fighting, which I believe is just a small group of elite people who have amassed a lot of control through the media and through these sort of psychiatric programs of brainwash. So Yoichi Clark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, that is a lot to digest. So many things that I was not even aware of myself. So many more things that I now want to learn about to make sure that I am up to date on a lot of the history that has just been blatantly obscured from us all. Like I said, it is so important that we share these videos. If you are watching this right now, please hit the like and the subscribe button on YouTube.
We've been saying on this show now for more than a year that Trump will likely win in a landslide, but that the deep state will never allow him to be inaugurated as president of the United States on January 20th. The CIA will not allow it. The very same group of people, of course, who doesn't want him to become president because he's going to defund them largely and put them out of business. And now we're hearing from the deep state that the deep state is preparing for martial law in the United States in order to prevent Trump from becoming president. He'll win the election clearly by a landslide. It's seemingly was what's about to happen. But January 20th rolls around. This is how you can keep Congress from getting him into the presidency. They're already setting ballot boxes on fire in Oregon, Washington state, in the swing districts where Trump is polling very, very strong. Overnight, Clark County, Washington, had another ballot box set on fire. This in addition to the ones in Vancouver, Washington, and in Oregon. This is the United States of America. You look at this, you'd be like, oh, that's probably happening in some third world country right now. No, that's the United States of America setting ballot boxes on fire in areas, in swing areas where Trump is polling really well and doing really well. This is the tolerance, right? This is the tolerance we talk about. Hundreds of ballots up in flames. These areas that were hit in blue states are currently polling very well for Trump. They are swing counties.
This is why Clayton and I today were like, we have our ballots. We're like, are we going to mail these? Or are we going to go in?
No, we're going in physically.
Yeah, because
and we want
I don't trust it. Yeah.
I know.
Let us know what your plan is. If you've already mailed it, how do you feel about that? Because, well, two things. One, I want a sticker to wear around all day.
Right.
And then also, I just don't trust it putting that ballot in the mail anymore. Let me know how you feel about that.
So one way or another, they're trying to stop him right now. Either it's burning the ballots or something else. This is why we just said, we're going on election day to the polling location, voting in person. I mean, you guys do you. I mean, it's up to you. And I'm certainly they're pushing it over. I think the numbers overnight are about 45 million Americans have already voted. 45 million Americans have already voted. And they thought their ballots would be safe.
Mm-hmm.
They drop them in these ballot boxes. They're like, I'm doing my good for the country. Until you see the local news and you're like, wait a second, that's the exact ballot box that I dropped mine off in.
Right.
And they're all up in flames now.
Yeah.
Chad MC says, I'm voting in person. Yeah, let us know in the comments what you guys are planning to doing. Meanwhile, deep state whistleblower, former State Department cyber expert Mike Benz is warning that they will not let Trump move back into the Oval Office, even if he wins in a landslide. Watch.
So is your sense that on, say, January 20th, if Trump does win clearly in the election, is your sense that on January 20th, Trump will be inaugurated or no?
This period between November 5th and January 6th is going to be extremely intense. If Trump wins, my sense is that you will see street paramilitary, left-wing / never Trump, right even potentially. You're going to see this sort of summer 2020 style riot force start to break out on the streets. The media is going to portray them as pro-democracy groups who are protesting the illegitimacy of the Trump Electoral College victory. So that's going to shut down the country. It's going to start terrorizing people. It's going to start preventing people from being able to communicate. You're going to see pressure put on the social media companies, extreme pressure put on by the Justice Department, put on by the advertiser networks. You're going to see this crisis response. It's going to feel like this country is, it's going to feel like the day after January 6th for 2 months if Trump does indeed win the Electoral College, in order for them to prime the pump for their extraordinary actions on January 6th.
Oh, hell.
I mean, Mike Benz further elucidating this point says those astroturfed, race-based street protests will be framed as organic. Wow, they just came out of nowhere. They'll be spontaneous pro-democracy demonstrations, just as for all of our CIA-backed rent-a riots are abroad. The media will inflate this frame, and it will give cover for Congress to block Trump's win on January 6th, 2025, and then not be able to take office in late January at the inauguration. Kyle Seraphin, friend of the show, Kyle Seraphin, former FBI whistleblower, also saying this today. He said, how interesting about Mike Benz sees the same potential that me and the Suspendables have been talking about in our group chat. Y'all ready for the next couple of months? Now, Kyle's referring to Garrett O'Boyle, these other FBI whistleblowers who came out and had their lives ruined after they blew the whistle on how corrupt the FBI is. Garrett O'Boyle specifically, had his life, upended because he told the truth about what the FBI was doing, weaponizing of the DOJ and going after conservatives, going after Catholics and prayer meetings and so forth. So they've already been talking about it. They know what's coming. And now you have confirmation from Mike Benz saying this is exactly what they're planning. And so you can start to see this, right? You can start to see the organic street protests. People are taking to the streets. They're upset that Trump won. They're upset. There's going to be like anti-race. There's going to be these these organic, race-based street protests.
Yeah,
it's terrifying, and you know exactly the game plan. So just be aware of the game plan. This is what they're going to do.
there's going to be American soldiers on the ground.
We've been reporting here for months that U.S. Special Forces, including active duty military members and non-active duty, are fighting in Ukraine. Has Congress declared war? No, absolutely not. So then why are there reports overnight of U.S. Army Rangers fighting and dying after crossing the border into Russia and trying to attack Russian targets? It ended exactly how you think it ended, because we are not equipped to win a war there. Neither is Ukraine. We should have had peace talks 2 years ago. Alas, here we are with thousands dead. And now American soldiers dead as well. The FSB, which is the security service of Russia, just published photos of a dead Army Ranger from the 75th Ranger Regiment. We can't show you the full body, but this is the Ranger tattoo on one of the Rangers' bodies. How did they get that? How many Americans are being killed fighting in Russia for Ukraine? We don't know, because they won't tell us.
Thousands.
And in fact, according to RT, the FSB also showed the weapons and ammunition of these 4 fighters that were killed, American weapons, even a Canadian flag. So again, why are Americans and Canadians fighting Russians? Former CIA agent Michael Shower told us just a few weeks ago that it's well known that Americans are fighting and dying in Ukraine, but they're keeping it hidden from us. Watch.
If NATO forces are operating on the ground in Ukraine, unless we're there to pay them and change their diapers, there's going to be American soldiers on the ground. And we've heard since the beginning of the war of various conclaves of large numbers of NATO officers meeting in Kiev, supposedly in secure bunkers underground. And yet we know the Russians have claimed that they've hit 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And we never get even the notice in the Western press that something was hit, let alone was anybody killed.
Okay. Remember when Lloyd Austin said he was going to be more transparent with us about civilian deaths and where American soldiers are dying and that kind of stuff? That was in about 2022, 2023. That was funny, right?
Right.
So
well,
funny.
I mean, we know that mercenaries certainly are. Of course, we've known from the very beginning of this war that mercenaries are there from France, from the United States. We've been covering that extensively. But we also have talked about the CIA stations and, of course, the special forces that have been there and NATO forces that are there. But, of course, we won't hear any of it. And Michael Scheuer's big thing is, what are you telling the parents? Like, are the parents of these fallen soldiers? And see, Mandy right here in our chat, Mandy says, not just mercenaries. My friend's son was killed and he was U.S. Army. So again, not active duty, not just mercenaries. You know, guys that retired a few years ago and still want to go involved and go shoot some Russians, right? No, we've seen those people. No, active duty. So what are these NATO? What are they telling these parents? And are these families having to sign non-disclosure agreements in order to get the pension and benefits of their fallen son?
For
Can you
a
imagine?
war that not only did we not authorize, but Congress has not declared.
Like knock
We're
on your door.
We're supposed to be at peace. Does it feel like peace right now?
No, but like knock on your door. Hi, we're with the U.S. Army. Your son was just killed fighting. We can't tell you exactly where. We want you to sign this non-disclosure agreement so that you'll receive his death benefits. We're not going to tell you where he died, though. Wink, wink. We know where he died, but we're not going to tell you. So that's exactly what's going on here, and it's deeply, deeply troubling.
Pro-Ukrainian Western military experts from numerous American and European think tanks are still in a state of shock. They still cannot understand how the Russian army managed to turn the tide of the war and begin to win victories in all directions of the front. These pro-Ukrainian Western experts were confident that with the unprecedented support of Western countries and NATO, Ukraine would win a convincing victory on the battlefield, and force the Russian army to shamefully flee not only from Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Donbass, but also from the territory of the Crimean Peninsula. By the way, former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was also sure that Russia had no chance in front of the military and economic power of the West. Boris Johnson in all seriousness said that the Russian army would flee Ukraine in the first months of intense fighting. This British politician even convinced the Kiev regime, led by Vladimir Zelensky, who was preparing to sign a peace treaty with Russia in March 2022, to prevent the outbreak of a bloody war. According to insiders in Kiev, in 2022, Boris Johnson assured Vladimir Zelensky that Britain, the United States, and other Western countries would provide all necessary military and financial assistance to Ukraine, and that Russia had no chance of winning. Insiders claim that Boris Johnson assured the Kiev authorities that Russia is allegedly weak from a military and economic point of view, and that Ukraine should be sure to choose the path of war, in order to finally humiliate Moscow and emerge victorious in this confrontation, which has been going on since 2014. Unfortunately for Ukraine and its people, Vladimir Zelensky believed Boris Johnson, and plunged his country into a bloody war that has already claimed about 1 million lives of Ukrainian soldiers. Already in 2023, when the intensity of hostilities was only gaining momentum along the entire combat contact line, it became clear that Boris Johnson was deeply mistaken in calling Russia weak from an economic and military point of view. Apparently, all the intelligence of Western countries regarding the military and economic capabilities of the Russian Federation turned out to be wrong. Time has shown that the West cannot defeat Russia not only on the battlefield in Ukraine, but also in an economic war. Moreover, even pro-Ukrainian Western experts began to recognize the great capabilities of the Russian General Staff and the power of the Russian army, which, according to them, can take on any task at any given time. By the way, a few hours ago, the authoritative American news magazine, U.S. News and World Report, published a world ranking of the most powerful armies. According to this American news magazine, the Russian army confidently occupies the first line of the world ranking. This conclusion was made based on the results of a survey of 17,000 independent military experts around the world. The assessment was carried out according to 80 criteria. Most of these military experts have stated that the Russian army is the world's most powerful military strength. At the same time, it is worth noting that, unlike other authoritative publications, the American news magazine compiles a rating based not on the number of troops or financial capabilities of countries, but on the real state of affairs, and the ability of an army to solve military tasks of any scale. It is noteworthy that many military experts interviewed by American news magazine stated that as of 2024, the Russian army is the world's only military strength, capable of solving military tasks of any scale. In addition, experts and analysts also recognized the Russian army as the world's most experienced and high-tech, capable of destroying even the most powerful enemy fortifications. They also added that the Russian army is the world's only military strength that showed in practice its effectiveness in the 21st century. Meanwhile, after the liberation by the Russian army of such strategically important settlements as Seladovo, Gornyak, and Izmalovka, footage of the mass flight of Ukrainian soldiers in the Pokrovsk and Kurakovo directions of the front began to appear on the network. According to war correspondents, the retreat of the Ukrainian army in Donbass is gaining the scale of a real flight every day. It is reported that the Russian High Military Command left a narrow corridor, so that Ukrainian soldiers could leave the settlements of Donbass liberated by the Russian army. At the same time, this narrow corridor is constantly being shelled by Russian artillery and combat aviation, as a result of which the retreating units of the Ukrainian army continue to suffer heavy losses in manpower and equipment. Commenting on the situation on the battlefield, well-known military journalist and expert Yuri Podolyaka said that the Russian army is increasing the scale of military operations to break through the enemy front every day. At the same time, the expert noted that recently he began to notice that the Russian High Military Command has begun to develop and implement a large number of highly professional military operations that have never been in the Russian army. In addition, Yuri Podolyaka also noted the increased quality of work of Russian combat aviation and artillery. According to him, in the past 10 days alone, Russian combat aviation and artillery managed to destroy all enemy strongholds in the Volodar direction of the front. As a result, the Russian army managed to liberate the strategically important settlement of Bogoyevlenka and approach the village of Shakhtarskoye. Against this backdrop, a real panic began to be observed in the Ukrainian general staff. Insiders in Kiev claimed that the rapid advance of Russian troops in Volodar direction of the front forced the Ukrainian general staff to begin discussing the withdrawal of Ukrainian army units from the Kursk region, in order to prevent the Russian army from covering the city of Kurakovo from the southern direction. However, despite all the calls of the Ukrainian generals to withdraw troops from the Kursk region and strengthen the positions of the Ukrainian army in Donbass, the head of the Kiev regime, Vladimir Zelensky, continues to give orders for the transfer of the remaining Ukrainian units to this Russian region. All this led to the fact that on the evening of October 28, Russian troops managed to enter the village of Shakhtarskoye and occupy 30% of the territory of this settlement. In general, even Western military experts admit that due to Zelensky's adventure in the Kursk region, the complete transition of the entire Donbass under the control of the Russian army may take place in the first days of December this year.
The Yemeni armed forces unveiled a new weapon called Al-Qaria, unmanned suicide submarine, a type of torpedo, opening the curtain during the "to make your faces disgraced" maneuver. The launch of the underwater attack drone, for the first time in a press release published by the Yemeni military media on October 27, 2024. The presence of Al-Qaria on the strategic achievements of the Yemeni forces is a significant development in maritime defense and asymmetric warfare capabilities. This new drone can enhance underwater tactical operations and signifies progress in military technology, even locally developed weapons hidden under the waves, which appeared today, are a deadly maritime development for anyone who decides to attack Yemen.
Bad news for NATO.
The enemy's fleet and aircraft carriers are in great danger starting today. Al-Qaria was successful in its implementation during the maneuver, which simulated the Yemeni armed forces' response to a hypothetical hostile attack, which was coordinated and non-standard. Al-Qaria, characterized by its ability to travel more than 286 nautical miles in carrying out missions, which last up to 70 hours to a depth of 600 meters.
Iran gave them some new
It is also distinguished by its ability to operate in complex, dark, or even dangerous environments, disappearing and having a great ability to hide itself while knocking down enemy targets. In the targeting scene, the suicide submarine caused a huge explosion on the mock ship by its high destructive power due to the large amount of explosives it carries, as in the footage of the maneuver. This equipment is produced in quantities that cover the Yemeni coast, and perhaps as many as the number of enemy ships that pass through the Red Sea annually, and Al-Qaria will be hell for them. To make your faces disgraced, a large-scale comprehensive simulation, designed to counter land, air and sea attacks, launched by enemy forces through 4 waves of attacks that infiltrated along the western coast of Yemen. Using advanced tactics and new weapons, the maneuver includes complex combat operations, attacking enemy forces in different environments and terrains, from the sea to reaching the coast and cities, deserts and mountains, in accordance with tactical defensive and offensive operations. The Yemeni Armed Forces maneuvers, which included the participation of naval and ground forces, simulated various weapons, including unmanned submarines and sea minefields, aimed at confronting enemy aggression at sea, in support of the Palestinian and Lebanese people.
Today is Monday. Their product and their honest program that you ran yesterday at a lovely restaurant in Manhattan, where we had hundreds of people who are anti-war, pro-peace, maximum individual liberty folks, many of them fans of yours and fans of the show. And at that program, you made an incredible argument about how close we all are to nuclear war. Can you summarize that argument, please?
Well, I mean, in summary, we're literally just one bad decision away, either made by Joe Biden in signing off on giving Ukraine permission to strike deep into Russia, or on the United States greenlighting Israeli action targeting Iranian nuclear leadership or oil infrastructure. A bad decision by the United States in seeking to take advantage of perceived Chinese weakness and promote Taiwan independence that triggers military conflict. Either way, any one of these scenarios will instantaneously take us down an irreversible path that will inevitably lead to a general nuclear war. There is no such thing as limited nuclear war. Once it begins, it will spin out of control, and it will be the death of us all. The reality is, had Joe Biden signed off on Saturday, for instance, allowing Ukraine to use U.S. weapons, our Sunday brunch would not have occurred. We'd be all dead. That's how quick this will unfold. And so, I don't want to be accused of fear mongering, but I do want to put the fear in the hearts of every American so that they understand that there are consequences to elections. And it's important that the people we empower through our vote to lead us embrace policies that are designed to preserve the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that we all aspire to pursue.
And even though the Constitution requires that Congress declare war, the federal statutes, you pointed this out yesterday, the federal statutes are crafted in such a way that the President of the United States and him or her alone can make that decision, which would be far more destructive than any declaration of war the U.S. Congress has made.
100%. The President of the United States is given sole authority for the launch of nuclear weapons. People can advise him, but nobody can stop him. There is an extreme scenario where the U.S. military could refuse to obey an unconstitutional order, but the president would have to be so grotesquely out of line to make that happen. Generally speaking, the way the nuclear war system works is once the president authorizes the use of nuclear weapons, the military will automatically implement that order.
And would the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff be in a position to neutralize or delay the order?
No, the president has a unique communications capability that operates independent of any input by the chair. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is an advisor, as is the Secretary of Defense. But in a nuclear war, the communication will go from the President of the United States to the Commanding General of Strategic Command, who operates the independent military command that owns all of our strategic nuclear weapons. And it will be an order from the president directly to the Commanding General Strategic Command.
And there's obviously no standards. There's no checklist for the president. He's just going to give that order because somebody has told him you better do it, and you better do it now.
No, actually, what will happen is they will open up the briefcase, and the president will have, they already have prepared little cheat cards, 3x5 cards that have different war plan options. And what will happen is the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the National Security Advisor say, Mr. President, we recommend that you implement Plan B in this scenario. It's a range of options that meets the threat. Ideally, you would like the president to have some time to talk through this. But given the realities of nuclear weapons, especially with the advent of hypersonic weapons, what could have at one point in time been a 12 to 15 window of deliberation before the president had to issue the order has been shrunk down to less than 5 minutes. And again, in Annie Jacobson's outstanding book, Nuclear War Scenario, she talks about what these 5 minutes will be, which is disbelief on the part of the president. Is this really happening? Mr. President, you must open the suitcase. But is this really what we're talking about? Mr. President, you must open. Now he opens. Well, what options? If I do this, the world is, Mr. President, we are running out of time. You must make a decision, Mr. President. We have 30 seconds until they cross the line and we can't make a response. But I don't want, Mr. President, we are running out of time. Issue the order, Mr. President. And that's the kind of pressure he's going to be put under. Now, it turns out that it was a bluff, but once you give the order, it can't be taken back. Once the process begins, it's done. Everything's on full automatic. And
why do they call it a nuclear football? Is it in the shape of a football?
No, it's just where the game plan is. It's sort of a take on where the coach has his playbook, but it's literally a communications device where he will open up the codes and then he'll do authentication codes. Ultimately, he will give the order. He will issue an authentication code that's unique that has to be opened at that time while the other person on the other opens it. They will confirm the authentication. He will input it, confirm, and then we all die 72 minutes later.
What happened on Friday and Saturday when Israel claimed it launched a missile attack on Iran?
Well, Israel launched a missile attack on Iran. The missiles they used are called air-launched ballistic missiles as opposed to Iran's ground-launched ballistic missiles. These are, derivatives of weapons that are used. For instance, the Russians use a weapon called the Dagger, the Kinzhal, which is an air-launched ballistic missile. These Israeli missiles have been around for some time now. They've used them in the past in combat. They have some capabilities. Israel, launched around I think they were preparing 56 of them for launch for an operation of this sort. So I would imagine that they went forward with a strike package that that represented that. 56 ballistic missiles is enough to hit a handful of targets, not enough to take out all of Iran's capabilities. It's about the package that we would have used in the Gulf War to take out, for instance, a site like the Taji missile production and assembly and storage area north of Baghdad, which we hit with 35 cruise missiles, air-launched cruise missiles on the night of the Gulf War opened up. And this appears to be what Israel did. They fired a large number of these missiles, approximately 40 of them were probably used to clear out air defense sites, take out radars that would allow around 18 of their longer range missiles to hit a missile production facility in the vicinity of Tehran known as Parchin. And there may have been another missile production facility hit as well. But it appears that Israel was trying to send a signal by saying we're striking the facilities to produce the missiles that you used to attack us. The extent to which this is a success, if you listen to pro-Israeli media, it was a great success. If you listen to the Iranians, it was a horrible failure. As an experienced battle damage assessment officer during times of war, I will say the truth is somewhere in between, probably sliding in favor of the Iranian version of events.
Did the Israelis encounter some sort of a missile defense system or radar system with which they were unfamiliar, and it deterred them from a second or third wave?
I don't believe that's the case at all. I believe Israel launched an attack that was in itself consisting of 3 waves. Again, you have to launch attacks that clear the way. You have to clear a corridor in towards Tehran because there is layered air defense. But the Israelis had to put 100 aircraft in the air to make this thing go off. None of those aircraft, by the way, came close to penetrating Iranian airspace. All of these air-launched ballistic missiles were fired over Iraqi airspace north of Baghdad. But 100 airframes of this quality, these we're talking F-35s, F-15Is, F-16Is. That's it. That's the bulk of Israel's strike package right there. So there's not like there's a whole bunch of waves lining up to go on. This was it. This was their Sunday punch. This is what Israel had. And
did Israel have approval from the Iraqi government to use its airspace in which and from which to attack Iran?
Absolutely not. But even more curious is the question, did Israel have permission to use Jordanian airspace? Because the Israelis flew in the past to launch the last strike in April 19th. Israel actually flew over Syrian airspace, southern Syria, into Iraqi airspace, again without permission. But the Russians have their enhanced detection techniques in Syria, and so to avoid being detected by the Russians, who then would tip off the Iranians, the Israelis flew over Jordanian territory at very low level. That's not something they could have done without permission of the Jordanian Air Force. So they had permission of the Jordanian government to launch a strike against Iran, and that's going to be embarrassing for the Jordanians going forward.
Did the IDF suffer some serious setbacks in southern Lebanon in the past several days?
The IDF's goal was to launch an attack that would be about what basically would take control of a large chunk of southern Lebanon. The goal was to push Hezbollah out of this, to push Hezbollah beyond the range of their of some of their rocket bases, thereby creating peace and prosperity so that Israeli settlers could go back into the northern settlements. 60,000 of them were displaced. They were supposed to be 20 kilometers deep by now inside southern Lebanon on a front of about 100 kilometers. They've penetrated a couple hundred meters in areas. They haven't taken over a major town yet. They continue to be ambushed as they push in. Their elite forces are being hit. Their armored forces are being hit. And the bottom line is Hezbollah has basically pounded them to a standstill and is now punishing them with continued rocket strikes, not only inside Lebanon, but in the force assembly areas in Israel. So as Israel brings up reserves to come in and replace the forces that have been beaten to a pulp in Lebanon, they're being hit by Hezbollah rockets. And instead of being able to bring 60,000 settlers back in, tens of thousands more settlers are fleeing Israel. This is an absolute disaster for Netanyahu. You know, he ran a few trick plays early on, the pagers, the assassination of Nasrallah, the killing of his Hezbollah leadership, thinking that this would win him the war. Hezbollah has proven the fact that they are a very resilient resistance movement that has very deep layers of leadership, and they have a battle plan that they're implementing. And right now they're beating the Israelis head to head in a stand-up fight in southern Lebanon.
Do you think he recognizes that either his days are numbered or his military plans are numbered, and that he can't go much farther, Netanyahu?
I think he realizes that if he has the continued political mix that he has, that's the case, because the current military structure, especially with Gallant as Minister of Defense, they've basically said, this, you're losing and we're not going to win and your plans don't work and all this. So either Netanyahu has to accept the fact that that Israel needs to change course, or he's going to fire Gallant and replace the senior military leadership, something that is unprecedented in a time of crisis. But this is an unprecedented crisis because this war isn't about the security of Israel per se. It's about the legacy of Benjamin Netanyahu. So he's doing things to preserve his legacy, as opposed to preserve and protect, as opposed to actually help Israel out. And I think we're going to be looking at him cleaning house soon in the defense area as one last desperate measure to maintain some sort of political viability. This too will fail, and eventually Netanyahu is going to be removed, because he is the problem, not the solution for Israel.
In furtherance of what you've just articulated, Scott, here's a report from Crux, CRUX. It's about 2 or 3 hours old. The long-running feud between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and his number 2, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, has once again come to the fore. In a recent letter, Gallant has warned Netanyahu on the lack of war strategy and clear direction. Gallant expressed serious concerns that while the threats to Israel evolve, the war's objectives have not kept pace. The Israeli defense minister has added that lack of strategy is leading to potential missteps in cabinet decision-making. Israel's Channel 13 reported that Gallant sent the letter to Netanyahu and the security cabinet hours before the Israel attacked Iran on Friday. So, I mean, over here, that would be inconceivable that the defense secretary would be attacking and challenging the president in a written publication in wartime.
It just shows the total disarray that exists in the Israeli leadership and the Israeli government because of Benjamin Netanyahu's stance, which, again, when Gallant says there's a lack of strategy, he's talking about the lack of a military strategy attached to what would normally be rational national security related issues.
Right.
But because this is about preserving the political legacy of Netanyahu, the strategy that Netanyahu is pursuing is completely different from the one that Gallant would like to see pursued. And so Gallant is calling him out. And this is becoming expensive. We're talking about, Israelis are losing, up to 10 soldiers a day in Lebanon, with scores wounded. These are casualties that cannot be sustained by Israel, and they're losing them in some of their most elite units. The Igaz unit is a elite commando unit specifically trained to operate in northern Israel and southern Lebanon, and they're just getting waxed by Hezbollah because, as I said before, Hezbollah has been preparing for 16 years for this fight. Every valley, every stream, every wadi, every hill is an ambush site already prepared by Hezbollah in advance.
Is Defense Minister Gallant popular with the troops, or stated differently, will there be a fallout amongst the IDF if Netanyahu fires Gallant?
Hard to say. Remember, he is also somebody who is responsible for what happened on October 7th, and his he still has to be held to account. And so there's many who believe that he too has to go. I do believe, though, that we'll see within the generals, there will be dissatisfaction depending on who Galan is replaced by. If Galan is replaced by a war fighter who looks out for the interests of the soldiers, who will advocate for the soldiers, then the military might let this one pass as simply a political dispute. But if Gallant is replaced by a Ben Gvir type, this political right-wing, foaming at the mouth lunatic, the military won't put up with that, and you might actually see the beginning of an active revolt within the military against Benjamin Netanyahu.
Is Israel an ally or a friend of the United States?
In theory, yes. In practice, no, absolutely not. The opposite. And this isn't just going back in time to talk about, the USS Liberty, which is reflective of the absolute cavalier approach Israel has towards American national security interests. It's not just about Jonathan Pollard, who, as an American citizen, stole the crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community back in the 1980s. That is the book that listed all of the frequencies that we collected and how we collected them, what intelligence we're getting, billions of dollars worth of intelligence data that he gave to the Israelis, who then sold it to the Soviet Union, our arch enemy at the time, to open up some immigration. So Israel took the crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community and gave it to the Soviets, who now can listen to anything and everything and block us from listening to anything and everything because they wanted to have immigration. It's not just that. Israel spies on America more than any other nation. They spy on the White House. They spy on the Pentagon. They spy on industry. Israeli intelligence has penetrated the United States. They're not spying on us to protect us. They're spying on us to collect information to be used for their benefit, and sometimes to the detriment of the United States. Israel is not an ally of the United States. Israel contributes nothing positive in this day and age to American national security. In fact, Israel weakens us. Ask any ambassador who represents the United States abroad today what America's unquestioned support for Israel has done to the reputation of the United States on the international front. Ask the BRICS people why the world is gravitating towards Russia and China and away from the United States. And at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to America's blanket support for Israel and Israel's behavior, which is so un-American like. What Israel is doing right now, open genocide, open murder, mass murder. They just did a funeral for an Israeli soldier where his brother and soldiers in arms came up, and this is supposed to be the eulogy they give. We remember when you volunteered to go into Gaza and you said, I'm going there so I can kill every Arab man, woman, and child I see to get revenge. They're saying this as if it's pride. We remember as a joke to cheer us up how you blew up that Palestinian home. We remember how you shot that Palestinian farmer and murdered him. And they're saying this is good things. This is the sickness of Israel. And this is why America today is being hurt so bad, because we've attached ourselves to this cancer that is infecting not only the Middle East, but the entire world.
While you and Colonel Wilkerson and others were talking about peace yesterday in New York City, on the other side of town, a madman was addressing 25,000 people in Madison Square Garden. Here is a 60-second clip of what the madman said. Cut number 4.
They are our best friend. I worked for Ronald Reagan for 8 years. Ronald Reagan said, we have to be there for Israel always because they are always there for us. Hamas is not there for us. Iran is not there for us. They want to kill us. And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't let a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't let a Palestinian in Egypt. And Harris wants to bring them to you. They may have good people. I'm sorry, I don't take a risk with people that are taught to kill Americans at 2. I'm on the side of Israel. You're on the side of Israel. Donald Trump's on the side of Israel. And they're on the side of the terrorists.
Yeah, I mean,
Does Iran pose the slightest iota of threat to the national security of the United States?
so long as the United States doesn't pose a threat to the national security of Iran, and remember, Iran's a nation that's interested in preserving its sovereignty, not projecting its power around the world. There's not 800 plus Iranian-based military bases around the world. There are 800 plus American military bases around, many of them surrounding Iran. But no, as long as the United States is not threatening Iran, attacking Iran, then Iran poses no threat. In fact, it's just the opposite. Iran, and I say this with firsthand knowledge, having spoken to ambassadors, presidents, and other senior officials in Iran, they would love nothing more than to have normal relations with the United States. They don't see an inherent, ideological conflict between the two. They recognize the sovereign status of the United States, and they just ask that the United States recognize and respect the sovereign status of Iran.
Is there any legitimate argument to support, or any evidence to support Mayor Giuliani's claim that Israel is always there for us and the Palestinian children as babies are taught to kill?
Well, I mean, I'm no expert on, childhood education, but I am a father who raised two wonderful daughters. You met one yesterday. You've met the other at our event in September.
Right.
And I remember when they were 2 years old, the idea that you're going to teach a 2-year-old anything is ludicrous. You can teach them love. You can expose them to love. Maybe you could expose them to hate, but their ability to comprehend what's transpiring around them is nil. So this is chain reaction.
That is Maverick hearing Chris.
Sorry about that. I was doing such a good job playing with my dog with my foot, and anyways, but no. So this is stupidity in the extreme, and it's just racist on the part of Giuliani. But Israel, again, does not contribute anything. This is a nation that has a support network that brags about buying the United States Congress. They spent $100 million this year alone, AIPAC, to buy. If you add all the pro-Israeli lobbies together, we're probably talking close to $1 billion or more dollars. We have a American Jewish lady who is pledging $100 million to Donald Trump's election just so he supports Israel. American democracy cannot be bought. I mean, it is being bought, but it cannot be allowed to be bought. And Israel is in the business of buying American democracy. Why? Is it a friendship, Judge, if I have to buy your friendship? I mean, if I'm taking a lady out for dinner and I have to pay her for the night, I think there's another term we use for that. Yeah. So America is Israel's whore. We're not Israel's friend.
Scott Ritter, thank you very much, my dear friend. It was great being with you all day yesterday, just like it was up at
off his recent trip to Israel. Dan Cohen joins us now. Dan, when I saw your report, my jaw hit the floor. The CIA running concentration camps in Gaza. What did you find?
Yeah, Clayton, that's basically the plan. Right now, the U.S. and Israel have approved a plan to send 1,000 CIA-trained mercenaries, American soldiers, former British soldiers, French, Kurdish soldiers, to create what are concentration camps in the Gaza Strip. And they're basically what they want to do is clear out all resistance in the north of Gaza, which of course is being ethnically cleansed, and we're seeing daily massacres in this area right now. And they want to take a village, a neighborhood called Al-Tatra, in the northwest of Gaza, and use this as basically a test case to take Palestinians, concentrate them inside neighborhoods, and surround them with walls that they can only enter and exit with using biometric data. So whether that's fingerprints or their eyes, their pupils, or retinas, who knows what it might be. They don't specify, but this is a very modern, technologically sophisticated version of the same kind of concentration camps that what was in Vietnam the U.S. used. They called the Strategic Hamlet Program, or was used in Iraq and Afghanistan, where they called it gated communities, was the nice flowery term they used. And so they want to roll this program out. It's been approved by Jake Sullivan, the White House National Security Advisor, who is basically running the foreign policy of the United States, because obviously Joe Biden isn't and Kamala Harris isn't. So this unelected bureaucrat, this war hawk, who famously said Al Qaeda is on our side in Syria to Hillary Clinton, is now running our foreign policy and has approved this. So it's being done through a private company run by an Israeli-American businessman named Moti Kahana. His company, he calls the Uber for war zones. So privatized version. So they can send these mercenaries to basically surround these walled off ghettos, and people living inside can only get humanitarian aid if they submit their biometric data and they're approved. The others who don't will not receive any aid, meaning food, water, medicine, anything like that, and presumably those ones will be killed. So this is the counterinsurgency model that the U.S. has applied again and again in the post-World War II era that has failed repeatedly. And I think it's likely to fail in Gaza, as Palestinians are sure to resist.
So let me see if I get this right. The United States government under Jake Sullivan and the warmongers in Washington, D.C. have approved a plan that basically funnels millions of dollars to a private company that's going to use former American soldiers, CIA operatives, French soldiers, British soldiers, etc., mercenaries, bring them together to execute this plan, and then they can basically sit back and wash their hands of it because it's being run through a non-governmental organization, right? Oh, the CIA is not involved in this. We've just simply cut a check for it.
Right, exactly. And the man who's actually designing the entire thing, his name is Justin Sapp. He's a longtime American CIA operative official who was one of the first, who led the CIA paramilitaries when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks. And now this guy is tasked with designing this whole plan for Gaza. And if it's successful in this one neighborhood in Gaza, this is what they want to do throughout it. Now, I reported last November 2023, that the U.S. military's top publication had published an article by a guy named Omer Dostri, who then went on to become Benjamin Netanyahu's spokesperson. And this article called not only for the total destruction of Lebanon, but laid out a few different options for how Israel should handle Gaza, for what to do in the long term, whether that try to install the Palestinian Authority there, try to install some other sort of collaborator regime, try to have some kind of international mandate, get Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain to send troops in there to basically occupy for Israel. But none of those countries, or to have a direct Israeli occupation itself, but none of those countries were willing to do it because it would look so bad for them to their populations. But the U.S. is now not only footing the bill, but going to do the bidding, this bidding of Israel in Gaza by creating these concentration camps for Palestinians. So, this is where our tax dollars are going, $200 million to be exact. This plan has been in the works for, certainly they've been talking about it. That article demonstrates the idea has been circulating of what exactly is going to be the long-term solution, some kind of way to pacify the Palestinians of Gaza. But this specific plan has been in the works since February of this year, and it's basically a U.S. plan that Netanyahu has finally agreed to.
Even some liberals are being slammed for their honesty about what's been happening in Gaza. Writers like Ta-Nehisi Coates, who've admitted to the apartheid state in Gaza, and others. You have Roger Waters, who's not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination, formerly of Pink Floyd, who's been speaking out with his own eyes. You've been to Gaza, you've been to this area, you know it well. So this idea that these people are free, that they'll be free to sort of walk around, is a joke, right? And they will be under basically an authoritarian security state in order to live their lives.
That's exactly what it is. And it's, I think during the COVID era, it's what so many Americans, particularly, who were skeptical of the COVID regime, and particularly among conservatives and those who consider themselves patriotic and demand their liberty, they became outraged by this idea that we're going to have this biometric security state that would control every aspect of our lives. But the Gaza Strip is, for many years, has been a laboratory, a testing ground, not only for Israel, but for the international corporate interests. During the COVID era, Israel, a Pfizer spokesperson said that they used the Israeli population as a sort of laboratory for their products. The West Bank is where Israel tests its repression tactics and exports those around the world, especially to the United States. And the Gaza Strip is basically the genocide laboratory and is being used now to develop this strategy. And if you think that your American passport, your American citizenship protects you, you should think again, because this is the exact kind of thing that they want to impose on any kind of population. It doesn't have, whatever it is, if it's racial or or any kind of thing, it doesn't have to be a racial thing. It can be anybody who decides, they don't want to take this jab in their arm or whatever it is. Now you're considered a threat to society, and you're going to be treated like a Palestinian stuck in some concentration camp where you can't live unless you submit your biometric data. You can't get food and water and medicine unless you submit that. So this is the exact kind of thing that we have to stop over there. Even if you don't, if you're not sympathetic to Palestinians or whatever, this is the kind of thing that will eventually be imposed on us. Palestine is the laboratory for all of the worst things that our ruling class wants to do to us.
Yeah, and we've seen the same also rolled out in Ukraine, right? We've seen similar, as you've covered, the DIA app and being able to monitor every movement that you make. And we use these in war zones. And that's where the CIA and, of course, the United States government loves to swoop in and use these as sort of a petri dish, if you will, in order to test these things. So they'll be using them against these Palestinians. But of course, this has always been about a land grab. It has since 1947. Israelis who want this land, trillions of dollars in minerals and wealth that sits off the coast of Palestinian lands. The plan to ethnically cleanse this area has been in place since the late 40s. This has been the plan all along. And we saw over the past 24 hours, we see members of Netanyahu's Likud party in southern Gaza basically holding a conference for their plans for resettling of Gaza by bringing Israelis into Gaza. So Anthony Blinken just arrived there for his sort of post-war plans, it seems, to line up with Netanyahu. The plans are to take over this entire area. And they're even putting out T-shirts. I mean, Netanyahu's not even being quiet about their plans for Gaza. So the idea is that Israel basically will take over Gaza. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they will have these sort of pockets of concentration camps then spread throughout. Is that the plan?
That's certainly what it looks like. I mean, I haven't seen anything on paper explicitly saying that, but we clearly know that the U.S. and Israel are seeking to create these concentration camps, and that's going to be rolled out this week, at least the first one. They'll attempt to do that. And yes, we had on Monday a conference of powerful Israeli government officials, including Itamar Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, one of the arguably the most powerful and influential person in the Israeli government, in Israel itself. partaking in this conference, along with several other officials who are actually from Netanyahu's Likud party, who are openly saying that we are going to build settlements in Gaza, just as it had done before. It's not the first time. There were settlements built after 1967 that existed until 2005, when Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza and then put a siege on Gaza in order to basically say, well, we're going to give up this tiny piece of land and concentrate a huge amount of the Palestinian population inside it. So it's a very small sacrifice, and then focus our resources on expanding settlements in the West Bank, which is much bigger and more resource rich, excluding the gas deposits off the coast of Gaza. So that was very offensive to a significant portion of the Israeli population, which they believe that God gave them that land. God is a real estate agent, and so they've always always been zealous, always desired to resettle that land. And so with October 7th, they saw it as their big opportunity. They were really excited about what happened because finally they can expel, ethnically cleanse the Palestinians, go there and build settlements. So there's this sort of plausible deniability that Netanyahu has, where he says to the world, oh, no, we're not going to build settlements. This is just about security and defending ourselves from these awful terrorists. Meanwhile, Israeli society is saying, no. We are going to ethnically cleanse everyone. We're going to kill them all, and we are going to build settlements in there. So Netanyahu is, just he's lying. He's the fig leaf over this entire agenda.
Right. Yeah, it explains why, for 7 hours on October 7th, the Israeli military did nothing, right? Stood down. Oh, it's a perfect catalyst. I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant, perfect catalyst to then use as justification to go after and label everyone as Hamas, grab that land, grab the minerals, grab the resource. People, wake up. I mean, don't be stupid. It's all about the money and the resources. Don't be an idiot. I mean, you even have scumbag Jared Kushner, right, who threw President Trump under the bus and aligned himself with Mike Pence, who's been making plans for Gaza for a long time. And even just a number of months ago, even publicly talked about this. So hopefully people will wake up and don't be sheep. Don't be sheep. I want everyone to read your amazing piece on the CIA. I mean, I don't know how Americans can sit by and just allow this to happen. But actually, before I get you out of here, Dan, I just want to understand the mechanics of these camps, if you could. How many people are going to be in one of these camps? Do we have an idea of the numbers? Will it be large? Will it be small? Will they be like apartment complexes? Are we talking about like housing projects in the United States? Do you know the size and scope of these?
They haven't given any of that information, those kind of details. Of course, it's very secretive. The head of the company, Moti Kahana, has posted a screenshot or two on his X account, but he hasn't really given these details. And of course, we just regular citizens, we're not privy to those kinds of details. That's for Jake Sullivan, who's basically our president at this point. So they haven't said, but they want to do it neighborhood by neighborhood. So I mean, it's considering there's 2 million plus Palestinians in Gaza. This is quite a serious project that they want to undertake. But I think we can look to a more kind of like what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, what the U.S. did in Fallujah, for example, where they basically try to create sterile zones where there's no resistance. The Palestinians are totally pacified, do not have any way to resist, and if they try to protest or rise up, they'll basically be the mercenaries will use crowd control methods. They have said this, we'll use rubber bullets and tear gas and fire in the air. And then if we need to, we'll do worse. So then they'll just massacre people. So this is basically what it's setting up for, is to put these people in concentration camps with using biometric ID identification for them to go in and out and receive aid. And if they don't go along with it, then they'll suffer the worst consequences.
Well, Antony Blinken just arrived in Israel overnight to deliver another $5 billion in aid from the Biden administration while Americans are suffering at home. So are you guys okay with that? Everyone watching right now, let me know in the comments below. Dan, great to see you from Uncaptured Media. Read his great piece.
as some of you already know, I have been making quite a few videos on these black flying entities, creatures, demons, dragons, cryptids. No matter what they are, I have been very interested in these black flying things that are seen on camera or caught on camera flying during or after a certain big event. Now, the first time these have been seen or caught on camera anyway was during the April 8th solar eclipse. Some of you have stated that you've seen these even before the April 8th solar eclipse, but the first time I've ever seen one of these caught on camera was during the April 8th solar eclipse in Texas. Some were saying that maybe it was a UFO. Some were saying that maybe it was a low-flying helicopter or some kind of plane. But there were other people that were saying that it kind of looked like a dragon. It kind of looked like a serpent flying in the skies. These were seen again in the United States, in the Midwest, where these cluster of tornadoes, these very strange tornadoes, had touched down. They were also seen in Iraq. They were seen in Turkey. And then more recently, they were seen in Israel right after Iran had fired missiles on Israel. This was captured the very next day. But it seems like the most recent video we have of these black flying things was during Hurricane Milton. Now, I was tagged in this video. It's an individual from TikTok. He said that his neighbor sent him this ring cam footage, and he recorded this ring cam footage from his phone. And as you can see, during Hurricane Milton, there is this black flying thing in the sky, which he believes is a dragon. Now, I know some people out there may be very put off by the idea of a dragon or somebody mentioning that they saw a dragon, that this is like crazy talk, and they'll go ahead and click off of the video. But there's something very important that you have to remember. On April 8th, NASA fired off 3 rockets, and they had a project called Project Serpent, which was also a project where they had 3 missiles, 3 rockets known as APEP or Apophis. Yes, these 3 missiles were named after the same asteroid that's supposed to be making its way to Earth, Apophis. But Apophis is basically the demon snake. It is ancient Egypt's version of Satan. So yes, NASA fires off 3 rockets known as the Serpent or the Demon Snake or Satan during the solar eclipse. And again, the first time one of these had been caught on camera was during the solar eclipse in Texas. Now, CERN is not innocent in this either. While NASA was firing off these 3 rockets known as APEP or the devil, CERN was out there looking for dark energy, dark matter. They said they were firing up the Large Hadron Collider on April 8th during the solar eclipse to look for this dark matter. Now, they said they were ahead of schedule, and they actually started the Large Hadron Collider on April 5th. But they say that anyway after some people started to now ask questions, because some people were saying, well, why are you starting up the Large Hadron Collider during the same time of the solar eclipse? What's going on here? What's the correlation? And then CERN comes out last minute and says, no, we changed our minds. We're ahead of schedule. We're going to go ahead and start the Large Hadron Collider and look for this dark matter on April 5th. So again, we have to take CERN's word for it. Now, I also wonder, and this just, came to me, but I also wonder if these black flying things is what was seen or heard crashing in Washington, D.C. And then they disappear, they scatter. This is why nothing had been found. Very interesting indeed. And we might look into that in a future video. Now, I know some people want to say that, why do you call it a demon? Why do you call it anything evil? And that's a fair point. We don't know exactly what this is, but I'm basing everything off of that CERN NASA connection, because it's a pretty big quote unquote coincidence what NASA was naming their rockets and their project and what CERN was looking for that day. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and play this individual's video. And again, he's going to talk about this thing being a dragon, but keep in the back of your mind what I'm saying when it comes to NASA and CERN.
So I live in the heart of where Hurricane Milton was coming through, and this was captured from a neighbor's ring cam. Do you see this? Right about there. This isn't AI. This isn't CGI. This isn't a hologram. This is a neighbor's ring cam that actually caught that. Now, personally, I have a few thoughts on what I think this is. And I don't think it's some sort of meteorite. I think it might be something spiritual, some sort of fallen angel coming down to the earth, or maybe even a dragon. And you might call me crazy for calling it a dragon, but I found this in the radar during that hurricane. It looks awful dragon-like to me. This is what the hurricane actually looked like. And well, if you don't see it, down to an eye and a giant dragon's mouth, we'll keep watching. Because maybe you haven't seen the dragons that I've captured in the clouds multiple times. This is just a literal picture from the clouds above that exact area in Florida where that image was flying through the air. And if you can't see it, eyeball down to lips and nostril. That was literally in the clouds above my house. And here's just another view of it. But I'm not done, because I also captured this a month before that one. And if you don't see this one, I mean, it literally looks like Valcor from the Never-Ending Story. This was just a cloud flying by my house. I mean, eye and mouth, I mean, it looks like Valcor. And when you slow this down and look at it a little, I mean, I'm not saying it's a dragon, but I'm just saying. And I'm also not saying I think it's a physical dragon. I think dragons currently are spiritual in nature, and maybe their essence from existing once upon a time here in this flat earth we live in are still present way more than we realize. But of course, this is all for entertainment purposes. I know this is pareidolia, and that thing flying through the air on my neighbor's ring cam was just some sort of transformer explosion, like the comment said in his post. Entertainment only. So I live in the
going on here. What's the correlation? And then CERN comes out last.
Cool figure. Follow me.